Okay, we should be live now. Welcome to the channel, guys. Welcome to the stream. If you are, a subscriber, returning subscriber, thank you for tuning in. If you're new, thank you for being here. So, yeah, we have, excuse me, we have quite the topic of discussion today. Something that I think definitely a lot to unpack here. It's still early where I am, so forgive me if I seem a little groggy. Still got my coffee, working on it here. Yeah, so I got to tell you, man. There were things that I was, maybe thinking, oh, maybe this could happen, maybe that could happen today, and waking up to the news that Microsoft has officially acquired Activision Blizzard. Activision Blizzard for, I believe it's $70 billion. $70 billion. That is crazy. That is crazy. I have to admit, though, while I wasn't expecting the announcement, I'm not that shocked. I'm not that surprised. And I want to talk about why that is. There's a lot to talk about. There were a few super chats that I got earlier. They're not showing up for some reason. I'm pretty sure they were from Space D. So I apologize. I did read them. I think you said Phil Spencer says execute Order 66. And then you also said something like Sony kind of forced Microsoft's hand because of all the money hiding they were doing. I don't think that's true at all. I really don't. The Caped Crusader, thank you for the super chat, buddy. You're saying Microsoft don't want to compete with Sony and Nintendo anymore, so they're just going to try to monopolize the gaming industry. This is troublesome. I mean, there are definitely some concerns here, for sure. We'll dive into that. And the Caped Crusader, again, member for 11 months. Thank you, buddy. You're saying Microsoft's greatest strength is not creativity, cultivating talent, nor is it building a studio from the ground up. Their greatest strength is money. Well, man, I will say there are going to be a lot of people, going nuts because of this. I mean, the funniest thing happened to me on Twitter this morning. I had a tweet saved that I wanted to put out today, and I figured I'll just put it out early. And as soon as I went on Twitter on my phone, the tweet was talking about how we are 1 month away from Horizon Forbidden West. And I put that out, and I checked the replies a couple minutes later, and dude, there were so many people like, "Yo, what are you doing, MBG? How are you ignoring this news?" And people basically just acting really weird, and I'm like, "What are you guys talking about?" And then within seconds, I saw like, "Oh, bad timing on my part." It was pretty funny, though. It was pretty funny because people were thinking that, like, I was just like, nope, not even going to acknowledge it. This isn't real. This isn't happening. That is funny, man. Lesson learned, though. Definitely check the news before I do that again. But yeah, so let's, I want to get into this conversation. I'm sure you guys are going to have a lot to say as well, and I think this is going to make for a great stream. I think this is going to make for a great conversation because there is just so much to unpack here. It's difficult. It's overwhelming because of the implications. I think that's the important part. Some things we now know for a fact. Microsoft is going to own Activision Blizzard. You would assume that this means that most of Activision Blizzard's titles will be exclusive to Xbox and PC, or just might not. No. Let me rephrase that because we have to make something very clear here up front. This isn't about. I'll try to keep up with the super chats, by the way, but this isn't about Xbox exclusivity or PC. This is about Game Pass exclusivity. I want to make that clear right now. By the way, shout out to my mods. So Sir Speaks a Lot. I don't know. You're going a little crazy there in the chat, man. This is not the time for nukes. This is not the time to nuke the chat. That time might come. So, shout out to my mods. Shout out to Sir Speaks a Lot. Do your best. Sir Speaks a Lot. There may be a time to nuke the chat. If that time comes, I will let you know. But yeah, I just wanted to make that clear up front, because I feel like this conversation, I mean, you already know there's going to be a lot of people being like, oh, Sony's dead. Xbox just killed Sony. And, you know, I will admit, I'm sure Sony is sweating right now. Oh boy, you better believe, I don't care how much of a diehard PlayStation fan you are. Sony is absolutely sweating right now, as they should be. They should be. And that's something else that I want to highlight here. Now, we're going to get into the conversation like, is this fair? Is this fair? Right? Is it fair that Microsoft is essentially playing a game that Sony can't play? That being the game of money. I mean, don't get me wrong. Sony is a $1 billion corporation. They have a lot of money. Sony has billions of dollars that they technically they could spend. But if I'm not mistaken, I don't know how much Sony is worth. I'm not sure exact. I mean, I could probably look that up, but $70 billion. Somebody let me know in the chat. Is that not more than what Sony is worth? You know? Like, I don't know how much it's probably less than what Sony's worth, for sure, but it's like up there, is what I'm trying to say. It's up there. I see a lot of people throwing out about 100 billion, 150 billion. Yeah, I believe that. 156 billion, that makes more sense. Yeah. So it's pretty much like Microsoft just dropped half of that for a single publisher. And we're going to, again, I'm going to try my best to not just go completely off track, because there's a lot of things I want to discuss over the course of this stream, for sure. But I want to say first and foremost, I see somebody in the chat, they said, guys, it's over. And I think this is where people need to, pump the brakes at least a little bit. I'm not here to downplay this acquisition, because there's nothing to downplay. It's a massive acquisition, just like Bethesda. But this is way bigger than Bethesda. This is way bigger than Bethesda. All right? So I'm not here to downplay it, but we need to control the hyperbole here. Saying MBG, your mods are out of control. Are you sure? I'm not seeing anything. I mean, I expect that the chat's going to be a little volatile today. I'll just say this before we go any further. Just don't be nasty in the chat. All right? Just don't be nasty. Just say your piece, give your opinion, give your thoughts, have a strong opinion. That's fine. Just don't be rude to people. Don't be nasty, and just don't say things that are just going to make, that are just simply being said to make other people feel bad or hurt them or something. Just don't do that. Let's keep it chill. All right? Oh, you're right. Yeah, I have to turn slow mode on. Give me 1 second here to do that. That's a must before we proceed. Actually going to make it... Okay, I turned slow mode on, and it erased... It took away all of my super chats. Oh, man, that is so annoying. I can't believe it just did that. I had all my super chats lined up, and it just took it away. You guys are going to have to give me 1 second to pull that back up. I'm going to pull the supers back up. Okay, I have all the super chats in front of me. Let me read some of them. Patrick Wagner, you're saying Call of Duty will be on Game Pass and PlayStation will have to adopt Game Pass. That's my prediction. Kendall Fire 22, you're saying this was a move to stop companies like Verizon, Google, Amazon from getting into the gaming industry, not just to compete with Sony. Kendall Fire, I do believe there is certainly truth to that. And I have to say, like, Microsoft, we've had this conversation before with Bethesda when it comes to these mega corporations that can just eat these large companies up, these large publishers. Between Microsoft, Verizon, Google, and Amazon, I mean, Sony can't really compete, monetarily speaking, when it just comes to pure capital with those companies. I would certainly prefer to see Microsoft over anybody else get a company, no matter who it is, or a publisher. Chris B, you're saying weird. Why is Microsoft buying content that is already coming to their platforms? That could be one reason, but it's for Game Pass. 100% it's for Game Pass. Microsoft, make no mistake, we talk about Microsoft wanting to make sure that they keep companies like Verizon, Amazon, Google away. That may be true, but make no mistake, this is Microsoft's way of strong-arming the industry, and I'm going to talk about that. Creeping Stage 514, you're saying they can say whatever they want. This is stealing. Ivanoa Kachofel, you're saying there are antitrust laws in place. The EU will contest this. That's certainly a possibility. Yeah, it's not. If I'm not mistaken, it's not finalized yet. So it's going to take time, just like with Bethesda. It's going to have to pass all this. It's going to have to get through, and it might not. There might be some roadblocks. Star Speaks a Lot, you're saying you underestimate how many billions you need to get to a trillion, man. Microsoft is $1 trillion company. They could buy everything if they want. Yeah, no, I'm well aware of that, Star Speaks a Lot. I'm well aware of that. We're gonna dive into this conversation about how big of a flex this really is for Microsoft. And I'm not saying that in the sense of like this is beyond everything, if that makes sense. Like, this is, when you talk about the end game, we'll talk about what Microsoft's end game is here. Space D, you're saying, fun fact, Xbox owns Crash, Spyro, and Sekiro now. Oh, yeah, dude, that is true. So Crash and Spyro I knew, and I'm actually happy because maybe they'll actually do something with it, because it was clear that Activision didn't really have any plans after they cashed in on the remasters and Crash 4. But yeah, Sekiro as well. That is interesting. Aaron, you're saying time to switch to Linux, even if it sucks. Josh or Jose, I don't know if I'm reading that right. Hernandez, you're saying Sony Corporation total assets $260 billion fiscal year 21. Okay, thank you for that. Thorax, you're saying Microsoft is becoming a monopoly. Oh wait, they already are. Holy crap, it's gonna be hard to keep up with all these super chats. I'll do my best. If we have to, I'll make it so that I'll read the super chats at the end if it becomes overwhelming, because there are things I want to say. Thorax, I read that one. Maxwell, you're saying Sony should be very worried right now. They should, in the next few months, be in Square Enix or of Capcom's phone, ready to make a deal. They have to buy both. J942. So really quick, Maxwell, the idea, that's something we're going to have to talk about as well. The idea that Sony is now going to have to make some very big moves of their own. But, the most important thing to keep in mind when we talk about this, because I do think you're right, man. Like, it would be bizarre to me if Sony is just like, whatever. There's no way. Like, there's just no way Sony is not basically panicking right now. There's no way. But here's what we have to understand. We don't know what Sony's long-term plans are. I'll put it to you this way. If Sony has the intention of making a Game Pass, like a true Game Pass competitor, where they're like, we're going to have our own PlayStation version of Game Pass that competes with Xbox Game Pass, then if that's Sony's end game, then, oh yeah, this is a devastating blow to that end game. It is a devastating, as well with Bethesda. But we don't know if that's truly what Sony's long-term goal is, or if that's just something, because we know what Microsoft made it clear. Microsoft is ahead in terms of the service area. Microsoft made it clear Game Pass is our future. We want Game Pass literally everywhere. Sony did the opposite of that. Sony was like, we're not our business model isn't around a big service like that. Our business model is around selling AAA games at full price for a console, right? And then porting some older games on the PC. That's Sony's model. And then PlayStation Now was just kind of an afterthought. So, maybe, I don't know, maybe Microsoft became aware that maybe this is Sony's long-term plan. Project Spartacus. Maybe Microsoft was like, okay, we gotta keep going. We gotta get ahead before Sony does stuff. This is just speculation on my part, but the idea that Sony now has to make some big moves, like by purchasing Square Enix or Capcom, I don't know. I don't know what is truly possible for Sony. Sony cannot just drop. Well, Sony certainly cannot drop $70 billion. Let's get that out of the way now. Sony can't drop $70 billion. It's literally impossible for them. Now, the idea of dropping $7.5 billion, I think Sony could do that. They could do that, but it would be much, much more risky for Sony to do that than it would be for Microsoft. $7.5 billion is like basically $7.50. No, it's not that low, but it's like $750 for Microsoft, It's just not comparable. Jay, thank you for the $2. Fever Gaming Xbox Game Pass is the online DRM Microsoft wanted. Also, Sony better give us the Vita 2 and everything else the fans want to stay competitive. Yeah, I would love to be a fly on the wall inside of Sony HQ right now. I would love to know what kind of conversations Jim Ryan is having on the phone with, other Sony executives and whatnot and other publishers. I would love to hear that. You have to imagine it's pretty chaotic. Maybe not. I don't know. There's a chance that Sony saw this coming or they knew about it or they got word of it. I'm going to be honest, guys. Sony, one of the things that Sony does have that we need to keep in mind is Sony has multiple exclusive games in development. They're in early development, but they're with former Call of Duty talent. Like they have Jason Blundell. They have with Deviation Games, Firewalk. And I think some of us were kind of wondering, like, why is Sony becoming so honed in on developing, first-person shooters, seemingly, or multiplayer titles. And now it's like, well, Sony, I've got to say, Sony was pretty smart for doing that because now they might not have Call of Duty. They're not going to have Doom. They still have to, there's still Halo, which was never going to come to PlayStation, but it's just now that's been increased. So I don't know, maybe Sony made a smart move by doing that. By the way, guys, do me a favor. We have over 2,100 people here watching, which is crazy. Thank you so much for watching the stream. Please hit that like button for me if you get the chance to do so. It really helps the streams out. Really appreciate that. Daniel DD, you're saying, I'm a Sony fan, but they really need to step up their game. Do you think Sony might buy From Software, Square Enix, Capcom, or something like that? Well, make no mistake, I think that this is going to force Sony's hand more so than it already had. You know what I mean? Like we saw Sony buy 4 studios within a year. 4 studios, I think 5 technically. And when you compare that to what Sony has done in the past, that's more studios than Sony bought for the past 10 years. They did that within 1 year. They bought 4 studios or 5 studios within 1 year. That's obviously because of the consolidation that the industry is going through, and that's obviously also because of what Microsoft's doing. So now that we see this, I have no doubt in my mind that Sony is going to push much harder than they ever had before to try to acquire. Does that mean they're going to get From Software? Does that mean they're going to get a big publisher like Square Enix or Capcom? I have no idea. I don't know. I mean, I want to say that it's honestly, I think it's unlikely because, again, the risk associated with it. But then you have to ask yourself, what becomes more risky at this point? Leaving these companies up for grabs, potentially? Leaving these companies up for grabs for anybody to pick them up? Or to just, even though it might be risky financially for you to buy one of these companies, you got to do it. You got to do it. I don't know. I would, there's a lot of people who would have told you, yeah, Activision Blizzard, they can never be purchased. Never going to happen. That's not a thing that's going to happen. And here we are, So I want it to be, I'm not saying this to brag. I'm not. But I just have to acknowledge I get a lot of things wrong, and people make it very clear to me, hey, MBG, you got this wrong. Yo, man, you got this wrong. And I take, I get a lot of things wrong. But if there's one thing I did get right, unfortunately, is I've been saying for a while now, we talked about the Bethesda acquisition for a long time. And I said multiple times, I said it over and over again, because, there are a lot of PlayStation fans who told me Sony doesn't need to worry. Sony doesn't have to be worried about Microsoft and their acquisitions. They don't have to worry about Bethesda. And I came back and I said, no, they absolutely should be worried. Maybe not shaking in their boots, but they need to be worried, because I said it then, and it has actually been proven to be true now that Microsoft was making a statement with that Bethesda acquisition, dropping a cool $7.5 billion like it's just nothing. To me, that and also when Phil Spencer talked about Game Pass on PlayStation, he said, oh yeah, Sony, that's just not something Sony's ready for yet. He had kind of this cocky attitude. It was subtle, but it was there, where he basically implied that, oh, Sony will eventually let Game Pass on the PlayStation. It's just not going to happen now, but they're not ready for that. And I tried to tell people, guys, Microsoft's greatest strength is their war chest. They're a $1 trillion company. I made it clear that the thing that we learned with the Bethesda acquisition is Phil Spencer somehow convinced the CEO of Microsoft and the CFO of Microsoft to just let him have access to all of that money, to do what they want with it. And now that we see, guys, I know there are some PlayStation fans listening to this right now that are, I don't want to say in denial, but I just don't think you understand the gravity of this. This isn't Sony's dead. It's not that. Don't listen to people who are saying that, because they're just trolls. But what this is, Microsoft within, 1 year? It's been just a little over a year. I really need you to understand the gravity of this. Within just 1 year, roughly, they acquired two of the biggest video game publishers in video game history. Not one, two. Bethesda and Activision Blizzard. And they spent $70 billion. That is an unfathomable amount of money. And I'm only emphasizing this because when I say this is beyond the console war. This is beyond the Xbox versus PlayStation. When I say this, it's far beyond that, and I need people to understand this. Sony, when it comes to money, when it comes to purchases, when it comes to acquisitions, cannot compete. And I know that's a tough pill for a lot of PlayStation fans to swallow, but that is the hard, raw truth, okay? And this isn't a matter of, well, does this mean Sony's irrelevant and PlayStation is dead? No. Just because that is the truth, that Sony cannot compete with that, that does not mean that PlayStation suddenly is, no. But Microsoft has changed the game, and they did so with their money. And that's just the reality of the situation, guys. That's just the harsh reality of the situation. Chlorian, wow, thank you, buddy. I will get to your super chat in a minute. Very, very generous super chat. I have a bunch of super chats, guys. So let me see here. Peterbed, son, you're saying, good call, MBG. This is all about Game Pass. Microsoft is building a platform to transcend console generation and is playing a different game than others. And yeah, and exactly, dude. Like, whether it's like the conversation at this point isn't really even about what we prefer or what we like or what we think is good or what we think is bad, because this is what is. You know what I'm saying? And you have to look at it for what it actually is. You have to, and then you can determine whether you think it's good or bad. Like a lot of people are talking about, oh, this is a monopoly. Microsoft sucks. Like they just are going to buy everything. Like, yeah, I'm not happy about it. Like I'm not happy. And it's not even just as a PlayStation fan. Just in general, yeah, I'm not happy about this notion, this, I don't even know what to call it. Like just this approach, I guess, where it's like, we're going to buy it till we make it. We're going to buy our way to the top. And I'm like, that kind of sucks. I understand why you're doing this, like from a business perspective. And a company perspective, you know, Microsoft, Phil Spencer, he is a businessman first. I think people need to understand that. I understand, but man, it doesn't make it suck any less, you know? And I'm saying that as somebody who doesn't give a flying fuck about Activision Blizzard. I need to make that clear. I'm saying that as somebody who literally doesn't care about Activision Blizzard. But man, it sucks because you know what the reality is right now, guys? You know what the question that Sony internally has to be asking themselves? Do you know the question that every PlayStation fan or even Nintendo fan, but you know, we'll stick to PlayStation here. The question that we all now have to ask is, who's next? Who's next? That's the reality of this situation. This doesn't mean that, well, I guess I can't enjoy God of War, Ragnarok, and Horizon Forbidden West anymore. Like, no. Sony has their own studios. They're in a very good position. They're in an amazing position. This doesn't make Sony's games or their, you know, their studios, their product, their platform any less, but it does take something away. MBG, you're clueless to what market cap is. Well, keep in mind, I wasn't just talking about Microsoft, dude. I want to make that clear. When we're asking the question, who's next, I'm not just talking about Microsoft. You think that these other companies who are serious about trying to get involved in gaming, like Google, like Amazon, right? You think that they're not going to start being like, okay, we need to do something now because we're going to lose out. It sucks. It's the consolidation of the industry, guys. It sucks, but it's the reality. But I really got to get moving through these super chats here. Sir Speaks a Lot, you're saying, for those who are wondering why I timed you out, it's what I do. I don't discriminate. You could be a baby and I'll time you out. Nukes don't miss. Yeah, so Sir Speaks a Lot is just talking about his occasional. He does like one nuke a stream. Those who have been here for a while know that. Let me see. Nick the Great, you're saying Sony is doing their thing. Microsoft is doing their own thing. Everything will be fine. Just wish we knew what games and innovation. Just wish they knew what games and innovation were. Shaking my head. Well, the thing is, you talk about how they're both doing their own thing. That's true. But here's the difference. The thing that Microsoft is doing is violently shaking the industry. I have to emphasize the word violently shaking the industry. I feel like the Bethesda acquisition was a big shake, but it wasn't like that violent. And then they're like, we're also buying Activision Blizzard. And that is a violent shake up to the industry where everybody's like, what the hell? Like, what? What do you mean? You know? So I don't think that Sony is... I don't know. I would just love to be a fly on the wall at Sony right now. I really would. I would be interested to they probably don't even know what to do next. Honestly, Sony probably doesn't know what to do. They have to do a lot of thinking and a lot of planning. Because there's no doubt that this had to have caught them off guard. I don't believe for a second that they're just over there like, yeah, you know, no big deal. Black Manta, you're saying Call of Duty alone in Game Pass is insane. Whenever the new PlayStation service is announced, I now believe that day and date is on the table. You know what I think is fascinating here? I actually think it's kind of the opposite. Well, I mean, I'm just off the cuff speculation, but I almost feel like now it's more likely that Sony will just embrace this. Well, I don't know. Sony, they when you think about Sony as a company, they normally do not just bend. You know what I mean? Like they do not just accept defeat. That's like traditionally, like as a company, they don't really do that. So, maybe I'm completely off the mark with what I'm going to say, but I almost feel like Sony is more likely than ever to actually consider finding a way and making a deal with Microsoft to bring Game Pass over to PlayStation. And then Sony will just have, I don't know though, because if Sony does have Project Spartacus and this is a service, I don't know, man. I'm telling you, this puts Sony in a very interesting position, man. Because if Sony decides to fight and push back against what Microsoft is doing, like let's face it, what you're saying is true, man. Call of Duty is the best. I need you guys to think about this before I go any further with the super chats. See, Gizmo MCs, you're saying this changes nothing. That is not true. That is not true, man. For now, anyway. For now. The reason why I say this is because you need to think about this for a moment. Every year, we see the best-selling games on each platform, okay? The best-selling games every single year by like a mile are Call of Duty games and also GTA. But Call of Duty is usually number one. Okay, Call of Duty is usually number one. I don't know if the next Call of Duty is supposed to be Modern Warfare 2, right? It's going to be huge. It's going to be absolutely a huge game. It's going to be Modern Warfare 2. I know people are like, oh, COD's dead, COD's dying. No, it's not. Like, I know that that's like the cool thing to say. And, a lot of people have moved on from Call of Duty, but it's far, 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 far from dead. There's a reason why Microsoft had to pay $70 billion to get Activision. There's a reason why. Okay? Call of Duty is far from dead. At least monetarily speaking. Okay? So you better believe that if there's anything that Sony is crying about right now, like they are legitimately like, oh my God. Like they're like, if there's anything, any single thing that is making Sony truly panic, it's the notion that, all that money you've made for like the past 10 to 12 years, every single year, millions and billions of dollars off of Call of Duty sales on your platform, off of microtransaction sales through Call of Duty on your platform. If Microsoft strips that away from them, holy shit, that is going to be a blow to Sony. That they will, I don't know what they'll do, but that you better believe. It's not like it's, suddenly Sony's dead. Again, it's not that. I'm not trying to make it sound like that, but I just want you to imagine if you were making billions of dollars on a yearly basis because of a third-party relationship with Call of Duty, to then just the next year, see this large chunk of money that you've been used to making every year that you report to your shareholders that helps you, grow your platform and make your platform just much more profitable and prolific. Yeah, that's gone now. And actually, it's over on the competition side exclusively. This is what I'm trying to say, man. This is why, even if you hate Call of Duty, even if you... I see what you're saying, Marty. You're saying nothing has gone through yet. You are right. Things can change, but we're working under the assumption that this is going to go through just like the Bethesda deal did. We're working under that assumption. All right? And I think it's best we work under that assumption because we don't want to assume that it's not going to go through. Because if you are somebody who does like Activision Blizzard games and you're used to playing them on PlayStation, you do not want to be that person that's like, not going to happen. Nope. You don't want to be in denial. You know what I mean? Because if the day comes where it's like, it went through and Call of Duty's exclusive to Game Pass now, you're going to be like, wait, what? You know what I mean? Like you're going to have to accept it no matter what if that happens. I see somebody saying Activision Blizzard is dead. It doesn't matter. I mean, look, we're going to get into that conversation, but we do have to acknowledge we have to see the bigger picture here is what I'm trying to say. Again, I asked the question in the title, what does this mean for PlayStation? This is possibly what it means. It means that Call of Duty is off the table for PlayStation. You thought that the Elder Scrolls was a big deal? You thought that Fallout was a big deal? Oh, no. They're not the Elder Scrolls maybe, but compared to Call of Duty, oh my God. That is it's not a death blow, but that is like a critical strike. That is a critical strike. So, if there's anything that's going to make Sony become very aggressive, and I mean like they're 80s training montage, like they're ready to go to war. If there's anything that's going to do it, it will be the removal of Call of Duty from the PlayStation platform. Now, it might not come in the form that you were expecting. It might not come in the form of now Sony's going to buy a big mega publisher. It doesn't necessarily mean that that's what they're going to do, but they will become very aggressive because they have to, So, let me see. Peter, you're saying I paid $1 for 3 months of Game Pass on 3 separate occasions. There's no way they've made profit off of me. Their business makes no sense. Well, you have to understand there is a difference between profitability and sustainability. When you see the bigger picture of what Microsoft is trying to achieve, you understand why Xbox doesn't need to be profitable. You understand why Game Pass doesn't need to be profitable. Not now, anyway. Because in case people aren't getting it by now, Microsoft's endgame in the game is to completely rewrite how the gaming industry works. Okay? So many people we've been so focused in the trenches on, these exclusives and, Sony's got this and Microsoft does that and blah, blah, blah. Meanwhile, Microsoft is literally they're literally working to change the game. They're not working to win the game. They're working to change the game. Jake, you're saying MBG, Sony has been buying studios all year. Relax. Dude, I'm chill, man. I'm chill. I'm not worried about I see not MBG appearing in the chat. I'm not worried about anything per se. I mean, there are some things that maybe are concerning about this, but for me personally, when I am not analyzing the industry and trying to think about the overall ramifications, this doesn't really affect me at all. I don't play Activision Blizzard games, and I do, I've played a lot of Call of Duty, but I'm like a lot of people where I've kind of just fell off of it. I usually end up, if I do play Call of Duty, it's usually end up just an impulse buy. I play the campaign, if there is one, and then I'll play multiplayer for about 2 weeks, maybe 3 weeks, and then I kind of move on. So I have played quite a bit of Call of Duty, but overall, I will say if Activision Blizzard, if they had any intention of doing more with the Tony Hawk games, I did play the recent Tony Hawk remasters, which were great. They were really good. So if they do more of those and they don't come to PlayStation, oops, hit my mic. Yeah, that's something that I will personally be like, oh man, I guess I gotta go play it on PC or Xbox now, But overall, it's one of these things where it doesn't affect me in a dramatic way personally, but it definitely, I'm more interested, honestly, in seeing what Sony does. That's what I'm interested in at this point. I'm just dying to know how Sony plans to respond to this. Whether that means they're just going to proceed as business as usual and whatever. I doubt that. I just don't. There's no way. I just don't see Sony doing that. They're gonna have to do something. Maybe not tomorrow. Maybe not this month. But they're gonna have to think hard. And they're going to have to really, I guess maybe, what's the word I'm looking for? Revamp, their plans and really kind of make some changes. Juan Pablo, you're saying Sony buying Take-Two and making GTA 6 an exclusive? Think about that for a minute. Well, here's the thing, Activision Blizzard costs $70 billion. How much do you think Take-Two would be? Certainly more than $70 billion. And we've already established that Sony cannot spend $70 billion. They cannot. So that's out of the question. The most Sony could do for a GTA 6 exclusivity would be to pay for some kind of timed exclusivity, but even then, the amount that they would have to pay, it wouldn't be worth it. So I don't think that's on the table. I think Sony's best bet. See, this is where you have to think, if you're Sony, what should you do? Because you can't compete. I said it earlier, and I'll say it again. You cannot compete with the amount of money spending going on. Sony can't. But maybe the thing that Sony can compete with, or they can do, is maybe we can make our own Call of Duty. Maybe we can make our own GTA type game. It's a big, it's risky. Well, GTA we don't even have to talk about because Take-Two as of right now is, they're still a third party publisher. So it's not like GTA isn't coming to PlayStation. But I don't know. Maybe that's Sony, but Sony does have a limited amount of studios. This is a conversation essentially about volume, and Sony has not been about volume. And I don't know that it would be wise for Sony to just shift gears abruptly to be like, well, now we're going to be about volume. We'll have to see. Panthorium, you're saying Xbox owns Candy Crush now, mobile gaming. Oh, that's true. I saw that in the picture. Maybe I can scroll down here for a minute. They have Candy Crush here, man. Microsoft now owns Candy Crush. Xbox is now Candy Crush. Green Al Gill, you're saying, hey, MBG, remember that time Crash and Spyro were beloved 90s Xbox mascots? Also curious to see what they do with the Skylanders IP and Game Pass. Yeah, I forgot about Skylanders. Yeah, that I gotta admit, for PlayStation fans, that's a crushing blow. No, knowing that it's not Sony that owns Crash Bandicoot, it's not Sony that owns Spyro, it's Microsoft. But hey, I'll still say this: better Microsoft than like Amazon or something, right? Stony916, you're saying, did I miss somebody's super chat? Somebody said I missed their super chat. I don't think I missed anybody's super chat, guys. I'm really behind on the super chats. I'm making my way through them. So if you didn't hear yours read yet, don't worry about it. All right, I'm gonna get to it. Let me see here. So, should Sony buy WB and Square Enix? I would say if it is a possibility that Sony could buy either of them, then I would absolutely say at this point they should. Now, I don't know. Maybe I'm saying this from a place of ignorance. I want that to be understood. I don't know what the long-term ramifications or what the actual financial risk of something like that would be. I'm just saying this based off of, it's clear that these big publishers are now being bought up. And if Sony doesn't want to essentially be forced to lose out, on some of these huge games that are still out there as multiplat, then I do think that Sony might want to try to do some. I don't know. I mean, it's tough because I feel like that goes against Sony's strategy that they have. I feel like that goes against Sony's strategy that they currently are employing, so it would have to be a pretty abrupt change. Tony, you're saying deal's not done till the end of 2023. It can still fail. Good point. I didn't know it was going to take that long. I did not know it was going to take that long. That's a long time. Where did you, I'm assuming, I don't know. I didn't, since the thing is, I didn't do all of the reading up on all of the details. I'm getting caught up in exactly what Microsoft wants me to get caught up in, which is, this is what's happening right now, June 2023. That's a long time, dude. That's a year and a half. So guys, maybe chat, maybe you can help me out here on the fly. Does this mean that that Microsoft can't make any of these games exclusive until that date? Is that what that means? Or until after that date? Because I don't know how that works. Yes. Everybody's saying yes. Okay. MBG, do you ever respond to the chat without it being super? Yes, I do. But I have to prioritize the super chats. But I just needed to know that. Somebody says no, but I'm thinking everybody else is saying yes. So I'm going to say that, okay, so that means until the transition is complete, check Charlie Intel's most recent tweet. All right, let me get to these super chats in just a second. I'm just curious to see this. I'm going to go check it out here on a separate tab. Charlie Intel. Why is Charlie Intel not popping up? Here we go. Charlie Intel. Let me check their most recent tweet, see what they're saying. Multiple lawyers and analysts believe this Microsoft Activision buyout will be a heated debate between Congress and Microsoft over monopolizing the industry. It's unclear how this will play out, but it will be very interesting to see how it does in a few months ahead. So, there's also this excerpt. I don't know where this is from, but it says Microsoft plans to keep making some of Activision's games for PlayStation consoles, but will also keep some content exclusive to Xbox, said a person familiar with the company's thinking. Okay, so yeah, we can't jump to any conclusions here. It's hard not to jump to conclusions. I mean, we have to understand that Microsoft coming out here and announcing this, they want people to have a mindset and a mentality. And it's exactly what I've been entertaining. And that is that this is guaranteed. This is what's going to happen. Even I said earlier, we probably, for the sake of just playing it safe, we should just assume it's going to go through without any issues. But the reality of the situation is it seems that it might be more complicated than we thought, which it does make sense. It does make sense. Because I will say, I've seen a lot of people as of right now, more than I expected. Like, there are Xbox fans coming out and being like, yeah, that's right, Xbox is amazing. But I actually see just as many Xbox fans being like, I don't think this is the way, Microsoft. Like, and at this point, it seems like Microsoft is beginning to earn the reputation, which I think is earned. You're just going to buy your way to everything. You're just going to buy till you win. And I think that, like, most people will kind of, whether you're an Xbox fan or a PlayStation fan, like, let's face it, a lot of PlayStation fans came out and were like, we don't want to see Sony do this. We don't want to see Sony go crazy and just buy everything up. But we also don't want to see Microsoft do it either. We don't see anybody do that. Steven, you're saying, I think Sony is sweating, but Sony does have a better friendship with Marvel, so there's that reason not to be worried. They lost because of this. We'll see, man. Yeah, they do have Marvel. I'm going to start getting through these super chats now, okay, guys? So, Sergio, you're saying Sony has to make massive moves. They have no choice. James Hutchinson says, this will force Sony's hand for sure. I think MiHoYo and Square Enix would be the correct acquisition in order to focus on specific markets. Manuel Soto says, can US put together an antitrust case against Microsoft if they acquired too many big name studios? Hi from Puerto Rico. What's up, man? MGS Zelda 1, thank you for the donation. One of my channel members did it looks like it was a super chat, and they retracted it. So unfortunately, I can't see what you said. Mike, you're saying hopefully this acquisition means a better working environment for all the employees and victims of abuse/harassment. Finally, get a fair settlement. Yeah, that's a whole nother aspect to this that we didn't even cover yet. That's a big, topic of conversation. Apparently, Microsoft announced that Bobby Kotick is remaining as CEO, and it's like, look, I know the Xbox fans and the fanboys, they want to like flex, but it's like you might want to like hold up a little bit, because that seems like a pretty moronic thing to do, frankly. So I don't know, man. It's just like, what I'm trying to say is I don't know that this is going to be the type of flex that Microsoft wants it to be. I think Microsoft is genuinely relying on the hardcore Xbox fanboys and the core Xbox fan base to really come out here and prop this up. But in reality, almost everybody's looking around being like, the fuck? like so many people are looking around like, wait, so so Phil Spencer condemns Xbox, or not Xbox. Phil Spencer does not condemn Xbox. They condemn Activision just a few weeks ago, basically being like, what do you guys do? Like what are you guys doing? What are you guys doing over there? To then acquire them and then announce that the person that everybody wants to see kicked out of the company is staying? Seems like a very Microsoft thing to do. Actually, it doesn't. I don't know, man. You're saying don't delete the stream MBG, the salt is real. Dude, see, this is what I mean. Like, what salt, man? Like, what salt? Maxwell, you're saying Square Enix and Capcom combined, they're worth $10 billion. They can do it, definitely. The question is, will they do it? Will they spend big money? Yeah, I if that's true, then yeah, I think that is pretty much the big question we're left with. Somebody says he isn't staying. Is this true? I don't know, man. I read that apparently Microsoft announced he will be staying. Bobby is only staying through the transition. Yeah, I'll look it up again just to make sure, but I'm pretty sure as of right now, they're claiming he's staying. But yeah, I do agree with you, Maxwell. The big question is, will they spend big money? Leo Jimmy, Capcom or Square is a better fit. Just get Capcom and remake the old bangers Capcom got. iSiler18, a member for 20 months. Play as No Limits Plus. Thank you so much, buddy. Saying Xbox had a statement saying games will continue to arrive on PlayStation and that some exclusive content will only be on Xbox. Yeah, so it seems like we won't reach that point where everything is exclusive to Xbox Game Pass until after the transition is fully complete, which won't happen for another year and a half. So Tom Warren says Bobby is getting fired. You are spreading misinformation. Bobby is not the CEO once the deal is done. Read. All right, well, you know what? Let me go look into that then real quick so we can... I want to make sure I have my facts straight here. I don't want to spread misinformation. I want to make sure we have it locked in. Let's see. I see an article from Kotaku. This is the first one that pops up. Head of Microsoft says he's grateful for Activision Blizzard CEO Bobby Kotick's commitment to real change. VGC. Bobby Kotick will remain as Activision Blizzard CEO after Microsoft acquisition. Bobby Kotick will remain as the CEO of Activision Blizzard despite its acquisition by Microsoft. A statement by the Xbox company confirmed that Kotick will currently not leave his role as a result of the newly announced buyout while the acquisition procedure continues. Quote, Bobby Kotick will continue to serve as CEO of Activision Blizzard, and he and his team will maintain their focus on driving efforts to further strengthen the company's culture and accelerate business growth, unquote. This is what the statement reads. Once the deal closes, the Activision Blizzard business will report to Phil Spencer, CEO, Microsoft Gaming. However, the statement does not clarify whether Kotick will leave Activision Blizzard once the deal has been closed. So there you go. In a separate statement, Bobby Kotick said, for more than 30 years, our incredibly talented teams have created some of the most successful games. So there you go. Like, I'm not the one spreading misinformation. You people these people in the chat and people online, you need to get your shit straight, man, before you come at me. You're going to accuse me of spreading misinformation when you're literally the one spreading misinformation. At no point does it say that Bobby Kotick will leave. Unless VGC is misreporting, which I doubt they are, it's essentially he's here to stay. And if you want to believe that he's going to get fired after the transition, then you can believe that. But that's not like, I'm just saying, if Microsoft has an intent to remove Bobby Kotick, then why wouldn't they do it now? But it's cool. It's cool because you know what? All these dudes that are like making it seem like he's gonna go. I'm with you guys. Like, I hope he does because I haven't talked much about the Activision thing, but one thing we all kind of came together and agreed on is that the dude's gotta go. Like, he's gotta go. So I hope you guys are right. I hope that he does go. I'm just saying we can't sit here and say that it's been announced that Bobby Kotick is leaving because actually it's the opposite that's been announced. It's announced that right now he's going to remain at Activision and he's going to report to Microsoft. So I don't know. We'll see what happens. I think it would be for the best. I think it would be pretty strange if when this is all said and done, if the transaction does go through, it would be pretty strange if Microsoft kept him. I gotta say, that would be pretty strange. MGS Zelda 1, you're saying Sony is only worth $81 billion. Sony needs Capcom, Square, or Konami. IPs only. EA, if you want the casual market. Sports games. Sir Archibald, you're saying Sony should buy Square Enix, Capcom, and CD Projekt Red. J942, you're saying Sony may be shaken, but no way dead. But they may be pushed to show a bit more of their unannounced projects. Plus, they have more acquisition plan. Dude, I gotta say, like, see that's the one area of this that genuinely like does get me kind of very excited about this position that PlayStation is put in because I know people are like, oh, MBG, and you're salty and you're crying. Like, okay, if you want to believe that I love Activision games, if you want to believe that when I turn on my PlayStation, I'm just booting up those Activision Blizzard titles, go ahead. But the reality of the situation is that I will say this is a bit extreme, but this is what I want. I want to see Sony pressed, man. I do, because what this means is no more quiet Sony. No more we're in the shadows Sony, I want to see scared Sony. I want to see shook Sony. I want to see Sony when they're back. Well, maybe not completely against the wall, but when it's a possibility, like, yo, you guys got to do something, and you got to do something big. I want to see that. As a PlayStation fan, this is what I'm actually excited to see. But I don't want, at the same time, like, it sucks that it has to come down to such an extreme, Somebody says, exactly, dude, you were tripping earlier. This is good news. Well, I'm not saying it's bad news per se. I'm just saying there's a reality to this situation that we have to acknowledge. The reality is, when we get that version of Sony, the version of Sony, we're like, okay, we got to do something now. We got to do something big. It's just, you don't want to see. It can be a double-edged sword because sometimes they can end up making dumb decisions. You know what I'm saying? So, by the way, guys, we have over 2,600 people here hanging out with me, which is awesome. Thank you guys so much for showing your support. Please do me a favor, hit that like button. We could easily get to 1,000 likes. Let me see. But yeah, I'm not trying to make it sound like, oh, Sony's actually winning here. No, it's not. This is just from a fan perspective. I just want to see, I'm tired of quiet Sony. You know what I mean? I'm tired of in the shadow Sony. I want to see Sony come out and flex and, beat the drum and compete, man. I mean, Sony is competing. They're doing extremely well. I'm just saying, like, I want to see that pressure applied. Because that means more announcements, more reveals. That means more for PlayStation fans. So, I mean, if you're somebody who doesn't care about Activision Blizzard and you don't play their games, or at least not most of them, this is probably more of you're like a big PlayStation fan, this is probably more of a good thing. Because if you look at the studios that Sony acquired this past year, that's why Sony was acquiring them, because they had to. So let me get to these super chats, guys. JDTV, member for 9 months, play as no limits. Thank you, man. You're saying Microsoft took the occasion at the right time. Remember Jim Ryan saying they would reconsider the partnership with Activision due to the recent acquisitions. I hope all of this helps the employees. Yeah, when it gets down to it, man, that is the one thing you have to hope for. I mean, Activision Blizzard was in a world of shit, deservedly so. And you have to imagine if they do end up becoming a part of Microsoft, that will dramatically change the culture, and hopefully it'll change it for the better. So, there are positives to this, or at least potential positives to this. There are negatives, there are positives, that's how it is. But that is one area where it's like, well, if it does end up happening this way, that is maybe something good that can come of it. We'll have to wait and see, though. I'm just going to be honest. I don't think, talking about Bobby Kotick staying, even if you believe he's going to get kicked out later on, I don't think that's. I just don't think that we have Microsoft CEO Satya Nadella backing up Bobby Kotick. So I don't know, man. It kind of makes you think like maybe that's not the best look right now. I don't know. ML is what I'll call you because I don't want to butcher your name. You're saying, I believe that Sony knew about it. That's why Sony is making a lot of multiplayer games right now. I thought about that as well, actually. I thought to myself, maybe Sony was ahead of the curve here. They saw this coming. They heard about it. They heard it through the grapevine, and they're like, we got to start cracking down and making our own multiplayer games. We got to make our own Call of Duty competitor. That would make sense. Either that, or maybe it's just they got lucky. Maybe they had no idea this was going to happen and they just wanted to do this, Kevin Reavers, you're saying Sony shouldn't compete. It's a measuring contest with Amazon and Google. Microsoft told us their intentions early on. I won't be surprised with an EA Ubisoft rumor more than Sony buying to compete. Yeah, I mean, I think when we talk about what does this mean for PlayStation, that is the big question. I do. I do think that that's the big question is like, would it be in Sony's best interest as a company with the PlayStation brand to just continue to double down on what they do and not let this sway them from their current plan and their current strategy? I mean, you see a lot of people in the chat, they're saying absolutely not. They're saying Sony absolutely needs to do something now and they need to do something big. But I don't know. It's tough. It's a tough call. I think in the immediate, like right now, like I'm talking like the next like 30 days, I don't think Sony has to do anything. Sony has games lined up that are releasing. Apparently they're going to have a state of play. There might even be an event. I think Sony's good. But I think, when you look at this move that Microsoft made, this is a long-term move. Microsoft potentially owning all of Activision Blizzard by June 2023. That's a long-term move. All right. So I think that whatever Sony is thinking right now, if they're sweating about it, they have to be thinking long-term. That's what they're paid to do. We have to understand that. Like that's the people who are Jim Ryan, Herman Hulst, anybody else over there who's running PlayStation, just like Microsoft, they are thinking long-term. All right. So there's no doubt that there will be more things, I think, that will start to happen behind the scenes that we may hear rumblings of through like insiders and rumors and leaks. But you're saying check Jeff Keighley's Twitter right now? Is he tweeting something important? Check it real quick. I see that Sony tweeted out 1 month to go until you can take on the formidable Tremor Tusk. Sony's like, quick, put the new Horizon tweet out now. It's pretty funny. Like the timing of it is very funny. So, Jeff Keighley says the Activision news makes you wonder what will happen with other major publishers / platforms. One thing I will say, a lot of innovation and future of this industry comes from independent developers / publishers out there too. It's easy to fixate on these huge deals. That said, the IP war chest of Activision Blizzard is obviously a huge boon to Game Pass. We'll be curious how much goes exclusive and how much Microsoft fixes the culture and issues at Activision. I'm somewhat surprised / disappointed that Kotick will stick around. Note, this New York Times story suggests that Kotick may not stick around after close. Seems unclear, less certain than the initial Microsoft statement. So Karen Wise, I guess, of the New York Times, I don't know if she's of the New York Times or not, but she says, I just spoke with Bobby Kotick, Activision CEO, and he declined to say he will be CEO after the deal closes. Post-close, I will be available as needed, he said. So, okay, well, maybe there you go. I mean, it's not confirmation, but it seems to be a good sign, you know? So he couldn't confirm it. And that has to count for something, right? Samuel Payne, you're saying Sony's budget for PlayStation is 13 to 18 billion. Yeah, dude, it'll be. I almost feel like at some point Sony, if there's anything that Sony has to get upset about, it's that they're getting like they want to have a moment like this of their own. You know what I mean? Like let's just be honest here. When you look at the acquisitions that Sony announced, you're not getting the same response. You're not getting the same reaction. Like Bluepoint is an amazing acquisition, and I love Bluepoint, and I'm really happy that Sony bought them. But that was more like, oh, yeah, that makes sense. That should have happened probably a while ago. Good job, you know? To whereas when you see something like this, like Sony hasn't had that. And I almost think that Sony might try, I don't know, they might want to get there. Like if they were to acquire Square Enix, if that were a possibility at all. So, you know, that would be Sony would have that moment. You know what I mean? They would have that Bethesda Activision moment. And I think that a lot of fans, believe it or not, they do want that. You know, this is the second time now where Xbox is coming out and being like, yep, we got unlimited money and we're going to keep making these announcements. I said it, man. I said it before, and I will say it again. Microsoft. I know people are like, oh, they're fending off Google, they're fending off Amazon. Microsoft wants to strong arm everyone and every publisher and every platform into putting Game Pass onto it. That is exactly what this is. You better believe that this is Phil Spencer basically hovering over Sony like, so, you ready to put Game Pass on your platform, Sony? And that's exactly what this is, man. That's exactly what this is. And Sony is like, and that's where you have to wonder, like, what is Sony doing? Is Sony like, no, we'll never do it, Phil. We'll never do it, Microsoft. We'll carve our own path. We'll make our own service. Dude, I'm telling you, when I heard Phil Spencer and that quote he gave out a couple months back where he's like, yeah, Sony just isn't ready. I think it's too much of a disruption for Sony. I'm telling you, man, it's because he was alluding to this. Because I called it. I said when Microsoft bought Bethesda, it's because this to them is how they win. This is that by strong arming. And I mean, look, when you are a $1 trillion company and you have access to you have access to that money and you can spare $7.5 billion and you can somehow just, spare $70 billion. You know? I mean, Very Rare, member for 3 months. Greatness awaits. Good morning, MBG. I hope your morning is going well so far. Microsoft acquiring Activision Blizzard is only going to make Sony go harder. It is what it is. That is true, Very Rare. That is true. Pewter Bed Son, you're saying chat screeching about antitrust. Just stop. This in no way makes Microsoft a monopoly. Any prior precedent, Activision will sail through. I'm expecting it to. I don't expect it to go as smoothly as maybe they would want, but I'm expecting it to. And then we have Chlorine A with a $100 donation. Thank you so much, man. That is extremely generous of you. I really appreciate the support, brother. You're saying as long as Microsoft doesn't touch Japanese developers, I'd rather them monopolize with games I don't really care about besides like, Call of Duty 4. Considering antitrust laws limiting the amount of studios a company can buy, I'm much more excited about Sony getting close to Square Enix. And that's the thing, man, is like, I feel like a lot of the core PlayStation fan base actually shares that sentiment. Not that we want Microsoft to and other companies to keep buying, but it's like, if that's what's going to happen, you hope that the companies are buying, or the publishers are buying other publishers and other IP that you don't really care about, right? And I get that. And I think that is a real conversation that we have to have at this point, because it's happening right in front of us. And, again, you have to think, I feel like the core PlayStation fan base feels that way, but a lot of casual people, Sony sells a lot of consoles, whether people want to accept this or not. Sony sells a lot of PlayStation consoles to the type of people who just play Call of Duty. That's a reality. We look at a game like God of War selling 10 million copies, even Spider-Man. You're saying Miles Morales outsold COD Vanguard. Yeah, dude, I'm not saying that Sony, it's not like Sony losing Call of Duty kills them. It doesn't, but it hurts, man. There's no doubt that a ton of people, Bobby, you say, you think I missed your super chat? I don't think so, man. I'm just, like I said, I'm still behind. So hang in there. But I just, it's just there, there's no denying that quite a few people probably just, let me put it to you this way. People wonder why, if you need to wonder why, Sony pursued the Activision deal with Call of Duty. Do you guys remember that? The Call of Duty deal used to be with Microsoft, and then Sony came in and they went to Activision and were like, yo, Microsoft's, the Xbox One sucks. PS4 is awesome. We're selling it like crazy. Come with us. Full market Call of Duty. It's a win-win. People have to ask themselves, why did Sony pursue that? Why did Sony care so much about that? Dude, it's because it sold consoles. It sold games, it sold consoles, it sold microtransactions. That's why. So if the day comes, it may not happen this year. Probably won't happen this year. Maybe not even next year, but maybe next year. If this deal does go through, eventually that would likely mean that Call of Duty. Keep in mind, Microsoft will own Activision if this goes through. So it doesn't matter what anybody says, where it's like, no, they'll keep, no, it will be, Call of Duty will be a Game Pass exclusive if this goes through, okay? And eventually, when that happens, you have to ask yourself, how many people who would have bought a PlayStation console to play Call of Duty are now not going to? How many microtransactions is Sony now missing out on that they were making, buku bucks off of? I'm just saying, like these are things that Sony has to prepare for, and that's you have to assume that's what they're doing right now. They're doing some calculations. They're trying to figure out, like, okay, how bad is this going to hurt? And then depending on what their financial advisors say, be like, this is going to hurt pretty bad. Be like, okay, we got to do something now. $70 billion for third place is what you're saying. Well, like I said, man, Microsoft isn't competing to win. They're competing to change the game. They're not even competing. They're actively looking to change the game. So Microsoft decided that Game Pass would be the thing that changes the game. And the day that they decided that, they were all in, Sir Speaks a Lot, you're saying, I wonder how long until Microsoft goes, hold up, I have money? You mean I can just buy these companies for cheap? That's kind of what they're doing now, man. At this point, it's not a matter of money. It's a matter of, talk about antitrust. It's a matter of at what point is it deemed a monopoly and they're stopped by the government, So, you say Microsoft will destroy Sony. No, I don't know, man. It's an aggressive play, but I just have to remind people, like, look, I'm not trying to play the fanboy role here, okay? And I know that people are going to take it this way, but I'm just, come on. Like, PlayStation fans, even those who do like Activision Blizzard and are maybe upset, like, can we not talk as if Microsoft just bought God of War? Like, can we not talk as if Microsoft just bought Spider-Man? This is where, like, I think people need to calm down. Like, yes, it's a huge deal. It's going to have a huge impact on the industry. It's going to have a big impact on Sony. But Jesus, man, it's not like suddenly PlayStation fans are waking up to the news that, wait, so I can't use my PS5 anymore to play Horizon or God of War or Elden Ring or any of the hundreds of games that are coming out on this platform? Because I'm just saying, like, the Xbox fans don't want me to be hyperbolic about it, right? You don't want me to come out here and be like, nah, Sony's fine. This ain't nothing. It didn't even happen. It's not even real. You don't want me to be like that. Then you guys need to also not act like Sony is completely dead. Sony's dead in the water. Microsoft just ended them. Like, please get a reality check, okay? It's a big deal, but it's not the end of Sony's world here, okay? It's not the end of the PlayStation fans' world. It's not, it is what it is, like chill. Just because I see so many comments of people being like, it's over for Sony. Stevie G says it's over for Sony. Dude, I love it. It's over, bro. It's over. I mean, maybe you're right, dude. Maybe I'm looking at this wrong. Maybe I'm looking at this all wrong. Maybe Sony needs to come out and be willing to sell to Microsoft. So Sony should come out and be like, Microsoft, take us, we're yours now. Actually, if you think about that, that would be really interesting. Imagine what it would be like if Sony and Microsoft combined. Like, what would the conversation what would Xbox and PlayStation fans do at that point? Like, like how would they battle each other at that point? What kind of what kind of nasty comments would they make? Oh man, I would love to see that happen just to see what the conversation would be at that point. It would be so funny, man. Yeah, I see somebody say Xbox tends to be like, well, PlayStation's dead now. Yeah, I don't know, man. MBG, you're joking, but Microsoft could not buy Sony. No, if I'm not mistaken, I don't know. Like, you can't just buy Japanese companies like outside territory. They can't just come in and buy Japanese companies. I think there's a law in Japan against that. So I don't know the ins and outs of all that, but I don't know, man. This is a very interesting situation. I'm really interested to see what happens next. I really am. Do I think Game Pass will overcome the PS5? Or I don't know, man. I mean, I don't think so. Not anytime soon. But the thing is, I don't know that Sony can fend that off. Like, if Microsoft doesn't stop this, or if the government doesn't stop them, and they basically are allowed to just monopolize, which I know they're not supposed to, but it just seems to happen sometimes, somehow. If that were to happen, then I don't know, man. I don't know. I will tell you this. I know that Sony doesn't want that. They don't want it to happen. You're saying somebody's screaming this isn't a monopoly. I'm not saying it is. It's not my place to determine what is or isn't a monopoly. There are literally laws and people put in place to determine that. All right? I'm just saying that it's just like I said with Bethesda. I said with Bethesda, Microsoft isn't going to stop. I said that. I said, this is the beginning. This is Microsoft sending a message. And now we're seeing it. We're hearing the message. We're reading it. Now we're going to have to see, how far does it go? How far does it go? We will see. It's gradually looking like a monopoly. Yes, it is. Gradually, for sure. Michael Stanbrook, you're saying the deal needs to be approved by regulators. Perhaps Sony will approve or appeal or intervene. It's a monopoly of the industry, as these are behemoth publishers. I will say, if Sony is able to do anything to help, push against this, they will. Absolutely. Josh, I didn't miss your super chats. I don't think I did. I'll go back and double check if I missed any. I'll scan them over again. I just probably didn't get to yours yet. I'm way behind in the super chat reading, so that might be why. Onyx, you're saying don't forget Tencent buying everything as well. LOL. Yeah, true. Yeah, we didn't even mention them up until this point. When it comes down to it, Microsoft or Tencent, Microsoft. If it boils down to that, Microsoft every time. Dwight Vincent, Microsoft made enough profit to pay for the Bethesda acquisition more than 3 times over already, maybe even more. Yep, and that's why we're seeing them drop a cool $70 billion like it's nothing. Dylan Wood, you're saying, I think it's about who can buy the most studios now, but Sony has talent. I believe more talent than Microsoft ever had. Sony just needs to focus on making amazing games. Yeah, I mean, it does come down to, how much talent does Bethesda have? How much talent does Microsoft have internally? How much talent does Activision have? And how does that stack up with the talent that Sony has and that the talent that Sony continues to pursue? Because believe it or not, when it comes to developers, it's not always just about the money. In fact, most of the time, it's not about the money. Microsoft can promise this, they can promise that, they can promise this, but the one thing Sony does have that can't be bought, and I've talked about this, Sony does have quite a few things that simply cannot be purchased. You cannot put a price on it. These things are, what make the games as great as they are. It's the understanding of creativity, the understanding of how to manage teams, guys, look at Call of Duty. I'm not here to shit on Call of Duty. More than enough people do that, but we need to get real for a second here. What has everybody been saying about Call of Duty for years now? For years. Every single year. Same game, rinse and repeat, it's been, people do not respect Call of Duty, is what I'm trying to say. Call of Duty sells, but people do not respect it. People do not look at Call of Duty and say, man, that's one of the best games. It's actually quite the opposite. I mean, don't get me wrong, people still buy it like crazy. So you talk about speaking with your wallet. Yeah, apparently people will just buy things even if they don't respect it. You know what I mean? But the point is, this is what apparently Microsoft is going to inherit. And it's funny to me because I've seen so many people already being like, oh, I can't wait to see how Microsoft saves Call of Duty and fixes it. And I'm like, are you kidding me? Are you kidding me? Last I checked, the biggest thing that 343 Industries got wrong with the biggest IP, that being Halo Infinite, was the monetization, was the progression. They basically didn't know what they were doing and they screwed it up. And they had to, and I've just seen so much back and forth from Halo fans and just so much negative, conversation about it. Just saying, dude, Call of Duty, this is what they failed to do with Halo Infinite is what Call of Duty has done successfully. So if anything, it's the other way around. I'm just saying, Microsoft, they're probably not going to touch Call of Duty, is what I'm trying to say. Call of Duty is going to be the same as it ever was. And that's the point. That's the point. So I think people need to, these people who are celebrating this, the Xbox fans who are celebrating this, they need to calm down and realize that this benefits, it does benefit Activision. And as we said, we hope that this benefits Activision in the sense that it changes the culture to something a lot better than what it was, obviously. But this also is something that, Microsoft is like, I think we could benefit from this. Mike Ybarra, I don't know. I think he's still there. Mike Ybarra is at Activision. He used to be a huge part of Xbox. So it's just, I don't know what people are expecting. Like if you're an Xbox fan who doesn't like Call of Duty, maybe you liked Call of Duty 4 Modern Warfare, maybe you liked Call of Duty Black Ops, World at War, whatever, and you don't play Call of Duty, you never really enjoyed it, or you haven't enjoyed it for like the past 5, 6, 7 years. If you're just expecting now that Microsoft has Call of Duty, like, well, I guess it's going to be amazing now, you might want to rethink that. And that's what I'm just trying to say here, because I have to imagine that there were quite a few Xbox fans who were, probably just a couple of weeks ago completely shitting on Activision Blizzard that are now like, yeah, Xbox the savior. Last I checked, one of the biggest things, and I need to highlight this because this is the reality, people. This is the reality. People want to make shit up. The reality of the situation is Bethesda came out and made it abundantly clear that, oh yeah, Xbox isn't changing us. Microsoft isn't changing us. We're going to be the same exact company we were. We're just going to have basically unlimited money now. That's what they said. Even Phil Spencer came out and said, yeah, they're going to be autonomous. So I'm only saying this because people are already jumping to conclusions, making it sound like Xbox is going to fix Activision. They're going to make them what they are. I just want you to know that Microsoft CEO literally just came out and praised Bobby Kotick. So do not pull this bullshit where it's like Xbox is the savior, Xbox is the hero, they're doing the right thing. No, they're not. They're buying Activision Blizzard, and they're going to let Activision Blizzard be Activision Blizzard. That's the reality. And if you need proof, look at Bethesda. That's not a shot at Bethesda. I'm just saying people didn't want Microsoft to change Bethesda. Now, I will say there is a little bit of leeway here. If enough people cry out against Activision, and if what Phil said is true, I mean, Phil came out and basically publicly condemned Activision, then you're going to have to make some changes. You can't just let them be autonomous. You're going to have to do something. And maybe they will. But I just see all these takes from people where it's like, what are you talking about? You know? Like, you're saying that Xbox is saving Activision? That's not what I'm seeing. That's not what I'm seeing at all. I'm seeing the literal opposite. I'm seeing them buy Activision and basically say, yeah, once this deal goes through, Activision's going to be Activision. And I want you to understand, I'm not saying that in regards to the misconduct. Let's make that clear. I'm not saying that, oh, Microsoft's just going to continue to allow misconduct. No, I'm not saying that. I'm just saying for what there's been so much. Let's put the misconduct aside for a minute. People have been just shitting all over Activision Blizzard and their games because they've just been dropping the ball. This is similar to what we saw with Bethesda, and there is a pattern here. I am not saying this to make it sound like Xbox fans shouldn't be excited. I'm not trying to make it sound like there's anything wrong with liking these games, but look at the downward trajectory with a company like Bethesda before Xbox came in. You know, they were on a decline. And Activision Blizzard is very obviously on a decline. There is a pattern here. But it's fine. It's fine because I see some people in the chat. They want to deny that. There are people in the chat right now, Xbox fanboys, who will tell you that's a lie. That people have been praising Activision Blizzard games. They love Activision Blizzard games. We've seen nothing but positivity. Same thing with Bethesda before they were purchased, right? Sure. If that's what you want to convince yourself of, then that's fine. I'm just saying, it's a reality of the situation. However, I will say the chances of these publishers being able to improve does increase dramatically. So we just can't sit here and say confidently that Activision Blizzard's going to be a much better video game publisher now. They're going to make much better video games. We don't know that. We do not know that. Just like we can't say yet with Bethesda. Like, everybody wants to assume that Starfield is going to be the most amazing Bethesda game ever, and it might be, man. It might be the game that everybody's been waiting for, but we don't know. And I will tell you this, it's going to look bad. It's going to look really bad for Microsoft if Starfield, I don't think it'll flop, but if it just comes out and it underwhelms and people are like, and it's like a Fallout 76 situation all over again or something, it's going to look bad. And Microsoft is going to be like, oh man, maybe we, but I don't think so because, like I said, Starfield, it seems like it's going to be good. I'm not trying to go too off the rails. I'm just trying to, again, keep things grounded here because I said earlier in this stream, you're saying I'm doing a lot of fence sitting. What is there to determine here? I'm giving credit where it's due. The credit being, hey, everybody wants to say that this is a huge deal. It is. It is a huge deal. I'm not saying it isn't. I actually said the exact opposite over the course of this stream. You know, people are making it sound like this announcement has ended everything. And I mean, look, to each their own, man. MBG is a doomer confirmed. I am kind of a doomer, honestly. But don't take it from me though, right? Don't take it from me though. I mean, look, you could see somebody like Jeff Keighley with over 1.3 million followers, 1.3 million followers on Twitter saying the same thing. Basically saying like, yeah, this is a big deal, but there still are a lot of questions that we don't have answers to. So we can't jump to conclusions. He's saying it, but he must be wrong too. He must be a delusional fanboy. Obviously. I feel bad here because there's a couple. Oh boy. There's a bunch of super chats I haven't gotten to yet. Hold on. I got to see how it shot me down to the bottom. I have to see how far behind I am. Josh, buddy, don't worry, man. I didn't miss your super chats. I'm going all the way back up. There's a lot of super chat. I had way more than I thought. All my ranting and raving over here, and I'm missing all the super chats. All right, let me focus on these so I can get make sure they all get read. Holy shit, I cannot believe how oh my god. I'm overwhelmed with the amount of super chats. And it's a good problem to have. I'm just saying. Oh, let me where did I leave off? Holy guys, I'll get there eventually. Wow. I've been sitting on these super chats big time. All right, here we go. Super chat time, baby. You ready? Dwight Vincent, Microsoft made enough profit to pay for the Bethesda acquisition more than 3 times over already. I got that one. Got that. Okay, so the Nerdy Giant says Xbox Game Pass is the future, but Sony has something Xbox doesn't, and that is high-quality exclusives. Reyes says all Sony needs to do is deliver great games. Leo Jimmy says, who's next? In the words of Goldberg, you're next. Ivanoa Kachofel, Sony needs to join forces with Tencent. Chris B, Sony already has EA Play. No reason for them not to have some cut-down version of Game Pass. Chlorian A says, Sony knows what to do. First-party, first-person military shooter with online. Bye-bye Call of Duty. The Mark Shark says, my question is, if Microsoft was capable of buying all these companies with their money, why didn't they do any of this last gen? Xbox is playing dirty. Hickzock says, these acquisitions take years. Sony knew about it. Golden Cheeseburger says, is Xbox ruining gaming accessibility? Danny Diablo says, do you think there's a chance that Sony buys into having Game Pass on their platform if the PS Plus tier system doesn't work out? Well, I did discuss that already, so hopefully I answered you. Darren says Sony should have invested in their platform more rather than waste millions on third-party timed exclusives that do nothing to further their platform. EO1 says, I think Microsoft is buying publishers with a Game Pass-like service, so not EA and Ubisoft, and probably Take-Two Interactive, Sega, etc. Patrick Wagner says they said they'd continue to support other platform communities. COD will be on PS5 next year, but Game Pass will as well. Spartacus lumped in with it. Samson says antitrust law might stop this. DS says, where's our Lord and Savior Hassan and not Kojima? Josh Shrank says, now we know what Phil meant when they said they were analyzing their relationship with Activision closely. Sony is honestly forced to buy a big publisher. KD says, MBG, this is insane, bro. COD exclusive to Xbox alone stings more than the Bethesda deal. Funny thing is, Spyro and Crash are now Microsoft IPs. Cade Forever says, MBG, you've been talking about COD. There's so much more than this. Microsoft now owns Battle.net and all those Blizzard IPs. That is inconceivable. Yeah, true. Chlorine A again says, I used to fantasize about Microsoft buying AB, Take-Two, and EA. So all the hordes of drones go play COD, GTA, and sports games on Xbox, but Sony gets FIFA, and Sony gets all the Japanese devs and innovates. Josh Shrank says, I don't like Call of Duty, but Sony has to do something. Candlefire22 says Sony just made that SOCOM reboot the number one priority. Yeah, dude, I hope that's real, man. I hope that's real. Freaky81 says Xbox only tries to change the market with throwing money at Game Pass because everything else didn't work out for them. iSolary18 says you missed my milestone super chat. I think I got it, buddy. KD says acquiring Square from Atlas have the Japanese market in a chokehold, but that's not enough to move the needle versus Bethesda and now Activision. Furver458 says, MBG, what do you think about Epic Games and Naughty Dog working together on The Last of Us 2 FM? I don't know. I don't know that they're going to be doing that. We'll have to see. Rob says Microsoft buys Sony and Nintendo next. LOL. Green Al Gill says, saw some people say Sony and Nintendo could merge, but Nintendo's on good terms with Sony and especially Microsoft. So what's the point? Fez Aleo says Sony might have to trade exclusives. JI says Take-Two Interactive with a market cap of $18.3 billion. It is smaller than Activision Blizzard, and in my opinion would be a wise move for Sony. Solid Snake says WB Interactive was for sale at $4 billion, but it was the studios. WB never said the IPs would follow, which realistically it wouldn't. Cost AT&T $200 billion to acquire WB parent company. Sony can't. True. Kyoko Channel says Disney is going to buy Sony and Square Enix. Jerome Montgomery says Sony got to buy a publisher. They now have no choice. D-Dog says, hide your kids, hide your wives, hell, hide your husbands. Microsoft's buying everyone out here. Hashtag buy me. Bobby Digital 2 says, I doubt. I don't are about Activision. I think he meant to say care about Activision, but at what point does Microsoft's actions become a monopoly? Kendallfire22 says, Sony has $44 billion cash on hand and Take-Two has a market cap of $18 billion. Even with the premium, it's technically within the realm of possibility. Dwight Vincent, he is a CEO until the deal is complete. Kylo Ken says, even after this deal is done, Microsoft will still be the only third largest publisher in terms of annual revenue behind Tencent and Sony. John Slam Lee, hi MBG, do you think Project Spartacus is Sony's response because of this buyout? That would make a lot of sense, and deals like this are not quite. It is very possible, man. It is very possible. That's why. Samuel Payne says Sony budget 13 to 18 billion for PlayStation. Simon says, haven't you heard or knew that Microsoft is 666? It's time for y'all to start making life decisions on whether you will take the mark. Microsoft is coming for y'all. Jeez, man, that got dark real fast. Chris Wade says you have to realize that this purchase/negotiation would have been in play for years before the controversy, surely. Well, yeah, true. Terry, you're saying it's a power move, MBG. Phil berates Activision Blizzard. Their stock drops. Investors put the pressure on, and Phil opens his wallet. True, yeah. Lord of the Wings rehydrated. Quantity versus quality. Sony has the quality, but at some point, quantity becomes more important, right? When will we hit that point? When will they buy Square Enix? If all go exclusive, when does PS allow GP? Matt Thornton, I think is how you say your name. Activision mostly deals in online games. Perfect for Microsoft, but I'll stick with Sony and their single-player story-driven blockbusters. KD says, I got a PC and I'm salty, LOL. People say competition is good for the industry, but this is just playing dirty. Taking away games from players is nasty. Chris B, wait, Sony forced Microsoft to spend $80 billion in a year to stay relevant, and Microsoft still won't have exclusives until 2023. Stony916 says, as a fighting game player, Sony should acquire WB for Mortal Kombat, Capcom for Street Fighter, and Bandai for Tekken to support their acquisition of Evo. Michael says, in other words, Kotick isn't going anywhere. They don't want to admit that he's staying. They're being vague so people don't get pissed at Microsoft. Inspector Guru says, is it true that Microsoft secretly owns WB Games but just haven't announced it yet? No, I don't think so. Josh Shrank, again, you're saying you missed my super chats. My brother, also Nixus, was hiring for a game director back in August. I thought that they were just bought as a support studio. We'll have to see what's going on with Nixus, and no worries, buddy. I'm getting your super chats now. Sorry about that. Space D, you're saying from the fan perspective, this looks like nothing, but PlayStation is definitely losing the casual mass market this gen, and that's Xbox. That is Xbox's endgame. At this point, Space D, I actually do think that is true. I agree with you. That is seemingly Xbox's endgame to an extent. Black Manta 1989 says the next PS5 showcase has to be massive now. I have a feeling this forces them to do one sooner than later. Venom64, if COD becomes exclusive, then it's game over for the casual gamers who buy PS5. Me personally, I'll have to sell my PS5 and get the Series X. Florian A says COD $70 billion, Rainbow Six, Splinter Cell, Ghost Recon $7 billion, excuse me. Aaron Yogurt says, wouldn't Call of Duty Day 1 on Game Pass drop the profits? Oh yeah. Yeah, it would, but it would fuel the Game Pass end game, I guess. Sergio, this is turning into PS5 for exclusives, Xbox for everything else. This purchase is insane. Yeah, it is. I can see how it's starting to look like that to some people. Edward Hulse, isn't it weird that Xbox happens to acquire these studios at low points? Maybe that could be how Sony gauges when Xbox acquires another. Yeah, you are possible. You are possible. You can tell I've been talking too long. That is possible. I think you might be on to something there. Sony might want to pay attention to that. Fairvare548 says, MBG second super chat, please give me your opinion. What do you think about Epic Games and Naughty Dog working together on The Last of Us FM? Well, sorry about that, buddy. To be honest, I don't think that's going to happen, man. Like, I think that the most we're going to see with Epic Games and Naughty Dog is you're going to see not just Naughty Dog, but Sony. You're going to see them just have a strong relationship where they'll trade some things occasionally, and they'll work together. But I don't think they're going to ever like collaborate in that way, man. It would be crazy if they did, but I don't think we're going to see that happen. That's just my honest opinion. Chlorine A, you're saying, I feel like Xbox were thrilled because Bethesda has the biggest selling geeky gamer games, but now AB has the biggest selling casual/mainstream games. And I don't know how they feel, but I feel the Bethesda acquisition was bigger. Dude, I highly doubt you are the only one who feels that that the Bethesda acquisition was actually a bigger one. I'm sure there are plenty of people who love Bethesda way more than Activision Blizzard. So I doubt you're the only one that feels that way. Jerome Montgomery is saying, if Game Pass goes to Nintendo, can Sony say no? I don't know, man. Sony would really be painting themselves into a corner at that point, potentially. I don't know. I don't even think Sony knows. Aaron Yogurt, Microsoft trying to be the Roman Empire of gaming. No wonder Sony named their secret project Spartacus. Oh, yeah, dude. Good one. Yeah, true, man. True. Spartacus, man, I don't know, man. All this has me thinking, somebody mentioned that surely PlayStation knew about this. This is a deal that's been going on for a very long time. I mean, yeah, that is true. And if Sony did know about it for a long time, maybe it did have an influence on the Spartacus service, and maybe it forced Sony's hand, man. Maybe Sony's like, you know what? We gotta take Game Pass seriously. We have to compete with it now. It's a possibility. It's a possibility for sure. We'll have to wait to see. Apparently, Project Spartacus is going to be announced soon. So we'll see, man. We'll see. You're saying, Carlos, read the press briefing from Microsoft that says when the deal is done, all of Activision will report to Phil Spencer. Microsoft can't fire him till the deal is done. Well, again, yeah, it's the assumption that Microsoft is planning to get rid of Bobby Kotick, but it just seems strange to me that, everybody's jumping to that conclusion when we have Satya Nadella praising Bobby Kotick. You know what I mean? The two things just kind of don't mix. Lord of the Rings Rehydrated, you're saying with the money they have spent, they could have bought Nintendo. Could we see a Nintendo? Do you think Microsoft will slow down the acquisitions? Is anything too big? I think, yeah, I do think there's too much. I don't think anything's too big, but I think there is too much at once, or just too much in general. And I think after this, you're going to have to see Microsoft has no choice but to slow down. If Microsoft were to try to pursue another, like, this has to be the upper limit, right, guys? Like, it has to be. There's just no way. This has to be the upper limit of what Microsoft can conceivably do in terms of how many publishers, like mega publishers, they can go out and buy. I could be wrong about that, but to me, it seems like this absolutely has to be the upper limit. I don't know if they would be allowed. You're saying they can still, but I don't know. See, this is where I don't know. I don't know, man. I'll put it to you this way. If Microsoft can buy them, they will. That's what I think. If they can do it and they're allowed to do it, they'll do it. That's how I look at it. Chlorian A again, you're saying Sony sells to Microsoft for $1 trillion, starts new company. Yeah, I don't think so. I see what you're getting at. Mr. Bills did it with just a small loan of $77.5 billion. The rambling gamer guy, hope you're doing well, MBG. I do think this is actually more about the metaverse. They mentioned it multiple times in the official press release. The metaverse. That's where I tune out, man. I'm going to be honest. Like, when I start to hear about the metaverse, that's where I tune out. I'm not trying to live in the metaverse. I just want to live my life here, now. I already feel like I spend too much time connected to the internet. I don't need to actually, you know what I mean? So if that's true, I don't care. I don't want anything to do with it. If that's why they bought him, then by all means, let him go. Run with that. The metaverse. I can't deal with it. It's too much. It's too much. Yeah, the home of NFTs. You're saying it's inevitable, MBG? Whether it's inevitable or not, I don't care. My death is inevitable. Your death is inevitable. That's fine. Not to get dark, but I'm just saying I'm not thinking about living in the Matrix. I'm just thinking about living my life the best I can and just accepting that this is my life and I want to make my reality better. I really don't want to have to put on a headset and live a different life somewhere else. I really don't. You will be in the metaverse. We'll see. It's easy to talk now, but I don't know, man. I just like the furthest I want to go is maybe VR, some VR gaming, and that's as far as I want to go. I don't want to exist in the metaverse. Oh man, we are in some fascinating times with the human race here, talking about the metaverse. Okay, so Josh Shrank, you're saying, missed my super chats, buddy. I'm going broke. No worries, dude. I know I'm late to them. I apologize. It happens sometimes with these big streams like this. It's hard to keep up. So I'm sorry about that. Padsy, you're saying, hi, it's a big deal for me personally if Diablo 4 and Overwatch 2 comes to PS5. I think you might say if it doesn't come to PS5. A lot of my friends think the same, so well played, Microsoft. Oh, I'm not saying it's not a big... Trust me, there are a lot of people, looking forward to Diablo 4, Overwatch 2, and if they don't come to PlayStation, again, this is where you start to see how, Microsoft is slowly trying to bleed Sony and other platforms. James Foreman, you're saying, with all the bad press of Activision, I bet Activision wanted to dump Blizzard. Microsoft, I bet, had the money to buy. I think you're right, man. I think you're right. The timing of it is very interesting. Simon says, actually, Sony, Microsoft, and Nintendo are equivalent to the camera world of Sony, Canon, and Nikon. If you think about it, Microsoft and Nintendo are the Canon and Nikon. Canon bought a lot of patents to stay in. I could see that comparison. Kevin Sin says, oh no, Vivendi merged with Activision in 2007 and they still own Crash Bandicoot, so Sony loses Crash. Yeah, that's a harsh reality for PlayStation and PlayStation fans. KD, you're saying people may not respect Vanguard and Cold War, but they definitely respected Modern Warfare 2019 plus Warzone, which was arguably one of the best shooters of last gen. Oh, wow. Yeah, dude, I totally forgot about Warzone. Well, I don't know. If this deal does go through, then yeah, that means Microsoft owns Warzone, but I think they'll probably approach Warzone the same way they did with Minecraft, where it's like it'll stay on everything. I doubt that they would pull that from current platforms. Microsoft doesn't normally do that. I don't recall them doing that. But yeah, I totally forgot about that. Primal Plasma, you're saying, yeah, Microsoft left Minecraft alone. Wow, that's funny. It's almost like you knew I was going to say that. Green Out Gill, you're saying, dude, Microsoft can... Oh my God, hold on, it shot me to the bottom again. Okay, here we go. I'm catching up now. I'm almost to the end of these super chats. Green Out Gill says, dude, Microsoft can have more non-FPS games now. That's why the Blizzard section of this acquisition is great. You have more WRPGs and puzzle games now. That's true. I think maybe Microsoft took the Xbox is just for dude bro shooter people. They took that to heart, seemingly. Chlorine A, again, you're saying Minecraft, $2 billion. Insomniac, $200 million. Call of Duty, $70 billion. Tom Clancy's, $7 billion. I see what you're saying. You're saying that you're basically alluding to the idea of Sony going after Ubisoft. That would be fascinating. That would be fascinating. I don't know how PlayStation fans would react to that. Primal Plasma, you're saying, I worked for Microsoft once. Once you are under their wing, there will be no more misconduct. Trust. No, I believe that, man. I want it to be understood that when I talked about, Activision Blizzard remaining the same, I did not mean in terms of the misconduct. That is obviously going to change. And as I said earlier, that is one of the most positive takeaways from this. But when I talk about them remaining the same, I just mean, the way that they make, not the way that they make their games, but the type of games they make. It's not like Microsoft is going to come in and be like, look, you're making these types of games. This is exactly how they're going to be. No, you're not going to see a massive shift, just like you're not going to see, and you haven't seen a massive shift from Bethesda. That's what I was talking about. And the only reason I said that was because, there's no doubt that the perception of Activision Blizzard's games has not been, what it once was. It's not peaked at all. It seems like it's been on kind of a decline. I'm not saying that to downplay this acquisition. That's just the reality. The hope, and I think the big hope that even Xbox players have, right, who are excited about this, is that changes over time to something better, right? But I'm telling you, Game Pass goes a long way with these types of games. A game that was once sold for $60 that was looked at negatively can very easily be looked at positively if you can access it through Game Pass for $10. That's something that's I think worth acknowledging here. Josh Z, you're saying Microsoft can buy all the washed up studios they want. It won't change that for exclusive experiences. Sony and even Nintendo outclass them. Brett Williams says after the acquisition, Microsoft lands firmly in third place after Tencent and Sony, and PlayStation first-party games are still better than anything Microsoft bought. Bobby Digital 2 says every time Microsoft buys a publisher, a lot of people leave for other companies. Figuratively Literal says if this goes through, it will affect the industry majorly. But what's more important is the precedent it sets. This opens the floodgates for anyone to be bought. That I do agree with. That was like the big thing that I was trying to highlight at the beginning of the stream, where some people were thinking I'm overreacting or I'm being like negative. It's not that. It's just that you're right. That is like something so important we have to acknowledge, is if we thought Bethesda was a big deal, and if we thought that Bethesda opened the floodgates for anybody to be bought and nobody's off limits, no. This does. Activision Blizzard being purchased for $70 billion officially means nothing, and no one is safe. Everybody's free game. That's the reality. Sir Holmes, unless they legally can't be bought, of course. I need to emphasize that. Sir, because there's always going to be people that are like, well, that means Microsoft can buy Sony. No, we know we're not talking about that. Sir Holmes, imagine Microsoft buying Activision and still come out as second to PlayStation. Hashtag Xbox is not the cool console anymore. PSN always wins. Yeah. Soul 9, you're saying, I can't believe this is happening with about 10 mind-blown emojis. MBG, you were right. Phil is going to force Sony to put Xbox Game Pass on PlayStation. Wow, just wow. Well, here's the thing. If Game Pass does come to PlayStation, it's not going to happen overnight, man. Like, I know that this is a big deal, and people are going to be talking about this we're going to be talking about this for a long time, guys. Like, it's just like the Bethesda thing, but even bigger. It's going to be a while till this conversation dies down, and we will have to see if Sony plans to help with the process of letting this conversation die down over time. But yeah, if PlayStation does end up getting Game Pass, it's going to be a while. But this is certainly a move in that direction. Yep. And New Soul 9, again, you're saying, bruh, I just saw this. Microsoft is using money to win. I got to give respect to them. I mean, I get that. I'm not going to... For me, it's not a matter of respect. I'm going to be honest right now. I don't respect Microsoft for this at all. I don't. It doesn't mean that I think it's like the cheapest tactic. It just means that it is what it is. Like I understand why they would do it. I understand why they are doing it, but I don't respect it. This move doesn't make me suddenly be like, well, I guess Xbox is just a better publisher now. I guess Microsoft is just the best game publisher now. It doesn't change my overall feelings and perspective, but it does make me I don't know if the word, not fearful, but it makes me feel like I hope that Microsoft is serious about cultivating talent, and I hope they're serious about actually trying to make sure that they, that they can improve the quality of their games, because the last thing I want to see, and I think the last thing even Xbox fans want to see, is you don't want to see Microsoft become so bloated with publishers, studios, and development teams that it's almost like the I just don't know at this point how we can have a conversation about Xbox and not talk about quantity over quality. That's all I'm saying. I'm not saying you can't have both. You can. But it's just the more that Microsoft takes on, the more difficult it's going to be to, like, how is Phil Spencer going to manage all of this? These are just aspects to this deal and the situation that I just don't think that everyone is considering. Some people are, but these are questions that you're saying Xbox lets them run themselves. I know that, and that's why I'm saying that's my question. I want to, before I get to the rest of these super chats, I want to bring up something here that I really do want some of you guys to think about this. All right, because I think it's worth thinking about. You know how I said earlier that the thing that gets me excited about this is the position it puts Sony in. The position this puts Sony in is a more compromised position, right? Where Sony suddenly might have to do more. They're going to have to react to a certain extent. They're going to have to start thinking about, well, we are going to have to change some things. We're going to have to dump more money into this, more than we were planning. We might have to buy more quality studios, or what we believe to be quality studios, than we were planning. We may have to try to find a way to produce more exclusive games and just do better, right? When you look at these companies that Microsoft has acquired, companies like Bethesda, and now we look at Activision Blizzard, these are companies that weren't necessarily struggling. Well, I don't know. It depends on how you define struggling. But what I'm ultimately trying to get at here is, the idea is you want companies, you want businesses to adjust organically. You want them to improve organically. And the reason why I say this is because that's just how it's supposed to be. It's as simple as, if I make a product that, the mentality behind this product was, just basically warped, and people didn't like this product. People were like, this is a bad product. We don't like it. It's not what we wanted. Suddenly, the company behind this product is going to freak out a little bit and be like, whoa, what do you mean? You don't like it? It's not selling? And then in that moment, it's sink or swim, okay? And they are forced to either do what they need to do to make sure they don't sink, which ultimately means people will get what they ultimately wanted from the company, or they're going to sink. And when you see things like this happen, people talk about how, Xbox is bailing out Bethesda, Xbox is bailing out Activision, and there is a positive to that, I guess. Like, now Microsoft is the safety net for Bethesda. Microsoft is the safety net for Activision, which means they can never sink unless Microsoft decides they want to kill them themselves, which they won't. Exactly, Space Gambler Jr. Diamonds are made under pressure. They're made with pressure. And I'm just saying, like, look, if a company and a team of developers and a business, if they can't survive and they end up, basically going under, there's usually a reason for that. And if they couldn't get it together, if they couldn't bring it back, if they couldn't turn it around, there's usually a reason for that. I'm not. I'm just pointing this out because to me, this is the position that Sony is in, and this is why I actually am more attracted to Sony's development teams, because Sony was in that exact position with the PS3. Sony's back was completely against the wall. Sony didn't have, they couldn't go buy Activision. They couldn't go buy Bethesda. They had to be like, we have to save ourselves here by investing more money in talent, trying to cultivate more talent and develop these games that we need to do it. Like, we have to do something or we're going to sink. And they came out stronger than ever with the PS4 generation, not just in terms of like getting the messaging right with the console, but with their studios as well. They really hit their stride that generation, and they haven't looked back since. That was done under an immense pressure of you are going to sink or you're going to swim. You're either going to fuck up and you're done or you're not. And they knew this. And if you go listen to PlayStation executives talk about that time period, that's exactly how they talk about it. They were like, we were scared. Like, we thought that this was going to be the last PlayStation. If we didn't get this right, this was it. I'm just saying, man, like, people want me to believe that greatness can come from comfort. Maybe it can. I'm not saying it can't. I think it can. But I just think that there will always be a certain aspect that's missing. You know what I mean? There will always be a certain thing. It always reminds me of, when Rocky went back, he got too comfortable. Rocky got too comfortable and he goes back out into the wilderness, suffering, realizing like in order to be what as great as he needs to be, he has to go through that, something that's either going to make or break him. He couldn't do it with all that comfort, Now I know I'm using a freaking boxing reference to video game development, but I don't know. This is just how I see things sometimes, and I'm not saying that Microsoft is doing the wrong thing. I'm not saying that this suddenly means that Bethesda should have died and Activision should have died. I'm not saying that. This is just some food for thought where it's like you see different approaches here. You know what I mean? Like, you see very different approaches, and I'm just not a believer. And I'm not even a believer. It's not that I'm not a believer. I'm not a supporter of this approach of, well, hey, if your game sucks, it's okay. We got a safety net here. And you could just basically, we got Game Pass. It's fine. It's fine. Like, look at the games that Microsoft got for their service, man. Like, I'm not trying to be a dick, but they got Back 4 Blood. Like, Back 4 Blood fucking sucks. It was a mediocre game that had no soul in it. Why do you think that's the game that they ended up getting to launch day one into Game Pass? Why do you think they can't get games like Battlefield's a bad example because apparently Battlefield should have been a fucking Game Pass game. It should have been. But I'm just saying, why do you think that they're not getting these more premium games? Because these premium games, for example, like Dying Light 2, why can't Microsoft get Dying Light 2? You're saying I'm going way off. No, dude, I'm not going way off. There is truth to this, man. There is truth to this. You just have to identify it. Why do you think they couldn't get a game like Dying Light 2? Because the developers behind that game know the blood, sweat, and tears that went into that. They know the talent is there. They know something great, not just good, something potentially great is there. And they're not just going to sell that off. Like, well, screw it. No, they know their worth. That's all I'm saying. And I know that people are going to perceive what I'm saying right now. You're saying MLB The Show. Come on, dude. Do we really have to go there again? That was not Sony's choice. I just want it to be known that everything I'm saying here could be completely undone. Sony could decide that Microsoft's way is the right way in the end. And if that's what happens, then that's what happens. You know, it is what it is. But I will still be pretty concerned that, well, if Sony chooses to abandon their way of doing things in favor of the way Microsoft does them, because a lot of people think that's what's going to happen. Sounds like MBG is insulting all the developers that choose Game Pass. Look, I'm not trying to insult the developers that choose Game Pass per se, but I'm just saying there's no doubt that there is a little bit of a pattern where you see these games and it's like, well, is it going to be great? I don't know. Let's go try it out. And then you play it and you're like, well, it's not the worst thing ever, but it's certainly not great. That's not me being an asshole towards developers. That's just how it is. Not every game is going to be great. There are games that, I think do belong in a service like Game Pass. I think Back 4 Blood is a perfect game that belongs in Game Pass. But I don't know. You just have to wonder. Then again, that studio, Turtle Rock, they sold to Tencent. So it is what it is. I'm just saying, these are the deeper thoughts that I have about it when it comes to the different directions that these companies are going in. And, it sucks to have this conversation because I could just see it in my chat right now. I'm just glancing at it. There are just so many people that are like, dude, you're just coping. It's like, oh, okay. I don't know what to say anymore to people, to the people who come here and say that, because it's like, I'm pretty sure we're going on over 2 hours now. I don't know, man. There was a lot of good conversation to be had. Hector F says MBG, stop coping. Game Pass is great, and Sony wants their own Game Pass now. Oh, dude, you know what? You're right. You're right, bro. You're right. It's over, guys. We got our answer. Hector F gave us our answer. That's it. That's the conclusion. That's the conclusion. It's over. That's what this is going to result in. Now, look, I'm being sarcastic, obviously, but honestly, Hector, there is some truth possibly to what you're saying, man. And I just happen to see your chat. A lot of people have been saying that. All right, look. The truth is, there may be something to that. We just don't know. We don't know how much Sony is planning to, invest and I guess you could say prop up this Spartacus service. All I can say is that I like the way Sony does things now. That's all I can say. I'm not here to say that Sony's way is the best way. Sony's way is the right way and Microsoft's way sucks and everybody else's way. I know it can come off that way. I'm not trying to make it come off that way. Because I don't want to be unfair to games and to development teams because I know it's not easy. I'm just saying that I like the way Sony does things and it appeals to me. And when we see how insanely disruptive Microsoft is becoming with their money and their ability to just scoop up tens of IPs at a time, like it's nothing. It does make me wonder, are they going to end up strong-arming Sony and forcing Sony to basically adopt a completely different business model that, to me, I'm not a big fan of it, I'm just not. I'm not sold on it yet. I'm not convinced of it. I'm not saying it couldn't be a good business model. I'm not saying it couldn't be the future. I'm just saying I'm not sold on it. I hope not. That's all it comes down to, man. That's all it comes down to. So, I do want to finish off these super chats. David Simmons says, I just wish Phil Spencer would stop his verbal diarrhea and admit these acquisitions are about taking games from Sony/Nintendo and not making them more accessible when they were already on PC. Well, David, I understand where you're coming from, but you have to look at it from the other perspective. All right. You have to look at it from the perspective of he's not actually trying to remove these games from Sony and Nintendo so much as he's just trying to force Game Pass into Sony and Nintendo's ecosystems. There's a big, that's the thing. Phil is, it is, it's definitely slick, but what Phil's basically doing is he's going to Sony and he's like, hey, yeah, you don't have to put Game Pass. You don't have to put Game Pass on the PlayStation. That's cool. I know you're not ready. But we're going to take all of Bethesda. Let's put that in the Game Pass. Oh, what's that? Oh, no. We're not releasing that on. Nah, that's gone. That's gone. You're not getting that on PlayStation no more. You could. You could if you just put Game Pass on the PlayStation. But no, Bethesda's ours. And so here we are. And Sony's like, okay, whatever. We don't need Bethesda. So Phil's like, oh, okay. All right. See how it is. I think my stream. I think my stream had a little hiccup there, but then Phil turns around and is like, "Oh, okay, you don't care that we took Bethesda, and you still are, you're not gonna put Game Pass on the PlayStation." Okay, well, now we got Activision. We're gonna have Activision. Yep, all of Activision Blizzard. And so Phil's just still sitting there. He's like I said, Sony, you can have these games. Just gotta let Game Pass on. And I'm telling you, man, he is strong arming Sony so bad. It's kind of comical to kind of look at it that way. But that's pretty much what it is, man. That's the situation. And I really do wonder what Sony's plan is. I do. Okay, Kapapa says COD Vanguard flop convinced AB shareholders to sell. Sony wanted Vanguard to succeed. Hence, no game release Q4 2021. I don't know. That's pretty conspiratorial. I like it. Could be true. Could be true, man. Yeah, maybe Sony saw this coming from a mile away and they knew that there was nothing they could do to stop it. Okay, I got it. I'm once again very behind in super chats. Okay, Invader Brain, you say, I want to know if Microsoft is getting close to becoming a monopoly. Honestly, I wouldn't be able to tell you that. There are other people out there that know much better, New Soul 9, you're saying, wow, just wow. Phil wasn't joking about putting Game Pass everywhere. No, dude. Yeah, that's the thing, man. When Phil Spencer talks about Game Pass, you have to now listen to him and just assume that what he's saying is, oh, we will get Game Pass on everything one day. We will do it. We will buy our way into every, if like basically Microsoft's new mantra with Game Pass is accept Game Pass or suffer, or suffer the consequences. That's like kind of what it is, right? Because yeah, that's just, I don't know, man. It's crazy. It's crazy to see how it's turning out. I would have never thought that this would be the situation, but here we are. Randy Pitchford, USB sticks and magic tricks, says Nintendo will never allow Xbox services on their console. No way in hell the Japanese government will let Microsoft buy a studio in Japan. I also don't think Sony left Japan to buy studios in Japan. We'll have to see, man. So I feel like you can never say never with any of this stuff. Never say never with any of this stuff. Rashdan B2 saying this isn't about just Sony. This affects major companies too, like Apple, that didn't want Game Pass in the App Store as well. Yeah, that's true. It is, like I said, man, it's strong arming. Simon, you're saying the big is how Sony has not been trying to create a solution to the bot/scalper issue and chip shortage and produce a stopgap to answer to getting more PS5 games produced. Sony has to address this. I mean, yeah, you do have to wonder where the PlayStation console falls in with this, because that is a problem. That is a problem. I mean, Sony is having trouble keeping up with the demand or even getting even close to meeting it. So you do have to wonder. You have to wonder if Sony is maybe starting to sweat a little bit more than even they thought they would be, because everything seems to be happening at once, where services are now becoming the talk of the town, if you will. console talk is becoming less and less because the only talk you hear are how people are having a hard time getting the console. And, I'm just going to say this, man. I know that there are a lot of Xbox fanboys here right now. I mean, I see them in the chat. They're all over. And I'm going to say this, and they're going to smile when I say this. But I think it's just the truth, okay? If there's one thing I've learned about Sony and covering them for the past couple of years, like specifically the past year and a half, 2 years, I and you have literally no clue what Sony is planning to do. And the reason why I have to emphasize that is because if you are a PlayStation fan right now who feels convinced that, this is what Sony's going to do, or Sony's going to do this, you have no clue. And I'm saying this because if there's one thing that we learned under the Jim Ryan leadership, okay, Jim Ryan being the head honcho of PlayStation right now, is that he has made it abundantly clear that they will pivot on a dime, man, at any moment. All right, that's the reality. Is Jim Ryan will take the PlayStation brand and spin it around, turn it on its head at any moment if he thinks that's what they have to do. If he thinks that that's what they have to do. Or if they have no choice. All right? I'm saying this because I could sit here and be like, hey, man, yeah, no, I think PlayStation isn't going to do anything. I don't think PlayStation is going to really react to Game Pass or whatever. No. MBG, you're saying Gary Whitta tweeted, if you thought the Xbox Activision was the biggest gaming news story of the day / week, just you wait. I wonder what he's alluding to. I just, this is an interesting conversation for me because I don't know, man. I've spent so much time. The biggest mistake I made when doing YouTube and specifically covering Sony, the biggest mistake I ever made was assuming that I actually knew Sony's plans, that I had a good read on what Sony was going to do next. Until I found out the hard way that, holy shit, I have no clue. Sony is wildly unpredictable. You know what I mean? And I'm only saying all this because I want to believe that Sony's just going to stick to their guns and do what I think they've done best for a while now. But we have no idea. I don't know. I have no clue what Project Spartacus is going to be. I don't know if Sony's planning on doing day and date. I don't know if Sony's planning on buying a publisher. I don't know if Sony's planning on actually one day that they're actually contemplating letting Game Pass on the place. I have no clue. My speculation is as good as yours, and that is just the way it is with Sony in 2022. So I'm not going to... I think Microsoft has been much more vocal. I think it's much easier to evaluate or come to some type of conclusion or even just predict Microsoft because here's why Microsoft is so predictable, okay? Man, that guy was annoying. The reason why Microsoft is so predictable is because they make their agenda known to the extent to where it's not going to change. That is the important thing I have to highlight here is Microsoft they have a goal and a mission that they will literally do. They'll do whatever it takes to get to that point because they have the means to do it. That I have to emphasize that they have the money, and that will not deviate. Any move Xbox makes, you know it's for one thing and one thing only: Game Pass. The growing of Game Pass. To whereas with Sony, you don't know because they don't know. Sony is more like, this is what's working for us now. It's been working for us for a long time, and we're going to stick to it for now. But if that shit changes and we got to pivot, we're going to do it. Jim Ryan even said this himself. I remember I read an interview with Jim Ryan where he was asked about PlayStation and cloud gaming. And I'm paraphrasing what he said, but essentially what it came down to is right now the console's great. We're enjoying great console sales. People love the console with our big AAA exclusives. Yeah, it's going great. But we don't know what the future holds. We don't know if cloud gaming is going to actually be the future, and it might be. We just want to make sure that if it is, we're here ready to pivot to that. That's basically what he said. So, my predictions when it comes to PlayStation, I don't even want to make predictions. My prediction is, or my statement when it comes to PlayStation is, who the fuck knows what they're going to do next? That's my feeling on Sony. My feeling with Xbox is anything they do next, whatever it may be, it's for Game Pass. Period. It's for Game Pass. And to get Game Pass everywhere. When it comes to Sony, I have no clue. I don't know. I don't know what they're going to do. And that's just how it is, All right, let me get to these super chats. Edward Hulse says, the good news is that Sony still has other third-party studios to take games from, and there's also indie devs, so PlayStation isn't out of the game yet. I do want to say real quick, something else. I know I just went on that whole tangent about how I have no idea what Sony's going to do next. That's not going to stop me from still trying to... I'll just put this out there. I'm not saying it's what they're going to do. I'm just saying it seems like a possibility. Something that Sony has been known to do in the past, and they've actually been doing a lot lately, is big third-party exclusive deals. And if you think about it, that really might be what Sony has to do. It might be the only thing they can do, and we've heard rumors that the next BioShock is going to be PlayStation exclusive. It might be stuff like that. If it turns, like we see KOTOR remake, things like that, and that might be what Sony has to do on top of what they can do internally with their own PlayStation studios. So it's a possibility that that's going to be their approach going forward. But again, who knows? The rambling gamer guy, you say, I hope they don't lock up everything, but we got to keep it real. Few publishers develop studios from the ground up. Insomniac and Naughty Dog were bought. Yeah, no, that's true, man. I mean, we always talk about how we would love to see that happen, but it's building a studio from the ground up is the hardest thing to do. But I would like to see Sony do that. I think that would be really cool of Sony, and Microsoft to basically come out and be like, hey, we're building a new studio or a couple. I know Microsoft did with I forget the name of the studio. You guys will have to remind me. It's eluding me right now, but they're building a new studio. I don't know why I can't remember the name. I'm like, Initiative. There we go. All right. Yeah, Initiative. Thank you guys. I don't know why I couldn't remember that. Yeah, they built the Initiative, and I think it's time for Sony to. I think that could go a long way for Sony. I do, because it's like when you think about what people respect about Sony, they respect their studios. They're like, hey, Sony, you have some of the best studios in the world. They're really talented. Now, if Sony were to come out and be like, we're building a new one, then it just seems like such a good idea, because it's like, well, that it's going to likely be a good studio. They're going to care very much about the talent that's within the studio and the quality of the studio. It's a new Sony first-party studio from the ground up. I think that would be a great way to generate a lot of positive buzz, where it's like, if you think about it, it would be the antithesis of what Microsoft announced, right? Microsoft announces we're planning to acquire Activision Blizzard, and then they, like a week later or a month later, Sony's like, we're building a brand new AAA studio from the ground up that's going to work on some of the biggest games for PlayStation ever. I think people would be, I don't know, just as excited, or I don't know that would create as much buzz as buying a mega publisher, but man, I think it would fall in line with what Sony's strengths are. if that makes sense. So that would be a cool thing to see. New Soul 9, you're saying for the people that are saying Microsoft is only focused on quantity versus quality, you people do know Netflix did the same, right? Pretty sure Microsoft, they are focused on both. Yeah, this is a big argument that we used to have with Game Pass where it's like, you know, if you're a believer in Game Pass, then you're a believer in quantity and you're never going to get high quality games on Game Pass. And I will admit, like, I don't know that I was wrong about the things I said because I had my reasons, but it's just, I've shifted my mentality from I think Game Pass will not allow for high quality games to, all right, maybe that's a bit too intense. I don't think that it's that they won't ever be able to get high quality games. I just think that I'm not sold on it. I have to see it. I have to have it proven. You know, I have to see that Microsoft can develop high quality games and just dump them in the Game Pass on a somewhat consistent basis. Somewhat. Doesn't have to be every game, doesn't have to be every month, nothing like that. But on a somewhat consistent basis, if they can do that. And I think they're getting closer and closer. I mean, you know, people talk about some of the games that they put in there so far, and it's like, yeah, some of them are certainly high quality, but I'm waiting to see. I'm super interested in Starfield. I really am. I just want to see. I want to see how much, like, I don't know, not how much, but just how well that game actually is perceived. And if it's actually like the big next gen, I really am. I'm genuinely interested in that because I feel like if they can do that, then I think Starfield could. What I'm trying to say is I think Starfield can be the game that ends the conversation of, you know, can high quality games exist in Game Pass, like, you know, AAA, that awesome. You're saying MBG deep down you want to see Starfield do bad. No, I really don't, man. I have nothing against Starfield. I don't want to see Game Pass fail. This is the biggest misconception with my channel and my my persona online, and I understand where it comes from because at one point in time I did want to see Game Pass fail. Because at one point in time, I did truly believe that this is going to kill gaming, like AAA gaming. And obviously, some years went by, and it's like, okay, maybe I was a bit reactive, a bit too much fear mongering. But the thing is, if Game Pass, and this is where I have to emphasize, if Game Pass can be profitable. This is in relation to PlayStation. If Game Pass can be profitable with big AAA games that are actually really good and really high quality, that would be the dream. Okay? That would be the dream. Because what that would mean is that Sony could actually make the games they make right now, right? Like God of War Ragnarok, Horizon Forbidden West, Spider-Man 2, Wolverine, and other games that they have coming. That means that Sony would be able, conceivably, potentially, to make those games as good as they are and dump them into like a PlayStation Spartacus service day one. And the quality and the budget of these exclusives would not have to be reduced because it's profitable. And that is it right there. That is it right there. Sony said themselves that for them, it wouldn't be sustainable. The reason why it wouldn't be sustainable is because it's not profitable. For people wondering why it's sustainable for Microsoft, again, it comes back down to the war chest. Okay, Microsoft is $1 trillion company. They just dropped $70 billion. For Microsoft, they can outlast anything, man. If it takes 15 years for Game Pass to eventually become profitable, they can last. They can sustain that. There's a difference between sustainability and profitability. The reason why Microsoft can spend $500 million on Halo Infinite and then drop Halo Infinite day one into Game Pass, knowing that you're taking a massive loss on this, is because they can afford to do so. They can afford to do so. Sony cannot do that. That's so fascinating to me, because if you think about the crux of this entire conversation, it's really about money. It's really about the money, man. What they can afford, what they can't afford, what's sustainable, what's profitable, why something can't be sustainable, because if it's not profitable, so if Sony tried to compete with Game Pass in the exact way Microsoft is doing it right now, Sony would go under. Sony would go under, man. They would go under real fast. If Sony were to just be like, here's Project Spartacus, we're dropping Horizon Forbidden West, we're dropping, unless they charged like $40 a month or something like that, right? Or $30 or something like higher priced, which that's a possibility. But it's not only would it not work out for them, but they're probably going to make more money, at least in the short term, by just selling these games at full price. So I feel like it's really important for me to clear that up, because it's like people think that like, oh man, you're just a Game Pass hater. Like, no, dude, it's just, I don't want to see Sony take the Game Pass route, because I am truly convinced that if they were to do that, we're not going to get the same type of quality games. The budgets for games are going to be reduced. You know? That I really believe that. And I just don't think Sony can sustain the type of quality that we get with their I mean, dude, Horizon Forbidden West is going to be 100 gigabytes to install. That's a massive game, dude. That's fucking huge. You know how many millions of dollars went into that game? You know how long that game's been in development for? 5 years? So it's just kind of like, yeah, no, I mean, Sony wants a big return on that game, man. Sony wants a massive return on Horizon Forbidden West. So I just don't see Sony going down that route, but they might be forced to, man. Saying MBG, that's called business sense. Yeah, I mean, yeah, it's Microsoft is playing the long game, man, because they can afford to play the long game. And I'm talking the long game, not the next year or two, not the next 3 or 4 years. I'm talking like the next 10, 15, 20 years. That's the game they're playing. And Sony cannot afford to Sony cannot afford to do things right now based off of what they think will happen 15 years from now. They couldn't do that. They just couldn't. Because if they were, they would already have a Game Pass competitor out. See, people may not understand, this is why Sony is so deceptive. This is why Sony, if you think about the conversations around Sony, and this is, I think, a revelation here, people. It is. If you think about how come Sony seems to be so misleading, like with the way they talk about things sometimes, and they always word, and it seems like they're always hiding something. Like they're always tiptoeing around stuff. They're always hiding. This is why. Because yes, Sony is working on a fucking Game Pass competitor. Yes, they have people every day working on this, thinking about how they could make it work. But they're not going to come out and say that. Sony's not going to come out and say the future for us is Game Pass and day and date releases, even if that's what they're working on behind the scenes, because then no one would buy their games. And they need people to buy the games now. Because right now, Sony isn't sure how to make it profitable. Because Microsoft isn't sure how to make it profitable. Because it's not profitable. It's sustainable. And the reason why Microsoft can wait it out is because of the money, man. Is because of the time and the money. And it's time and money that Sony doesn't have. It's time and money Sony doesn't have. And this is so interesting because I feel like I'm realizing something now. Like that's why, that right there is why Sony is so, this dude is fucking annoying. Jesus Christ, man. I swear, some of the people I see in my chat, it's like, just fuck off. Like, what are you doing here? They sit here and they spout toxicity. Oh, MBG's toxic. And they're saying the most toxic shit here. Like, go reflect or something, man. Sorry, guys. I can't mod the chat, Like, I'm trying to do the stream, and I don't know. Mods, try to, if there are any mods here right now, I know it's going on for a long stream here. Do your best. But I'm just saying that, this is, I think, a really, you're saying touch grass is the phrase. Yeah, I know. I'm all right. Let me get to these super chats, guys. I'm sorry. I find it very interesting because the more I talk about it, the more I think about it, the more clear it starts to become as to like why these things are working out the way they are, and why, mainly for me, why Sony talks the way they do, and why they. Did I recover from my sickness? I did. Thank you for asking. Mike says, everyone talking about this acquisition like it's all about gaming. No, it's about potentially much bigger metaverse, and Microsoft is going all in on that. That's a whole nother... Dude, I don't even know what that would... I don't understand how this affects the metaverse. If somebody could explain to me, if you're able to in a super chat, because I won't be able to keep up with the chat, what implications this has for the metaverse, because I don't understand that. Mr. Unknown, you're saying Sony will be buying either Konami or Square Enix. I know people don't like to hear that, but it's the reality we live in now. I would love Sony to buy Konami only because, man, could you imagine what Sony could do with Konami's IPs? They would fit perfectly underneath Sony. I really do. Chlorian A, you're saying, I wish Sony would buy the FIFA and BioShock developers and let EA and Take-Two be sucked into the Xbox black hole. That's a funny way to put it. Buy and fix CD Projekt Red to counter GTA and go home to all the Japanese devs, as Sony can't buy anymore because they are monopolied out. 18 May says, some crazy mental gymnastics from Sony fans right now. There is no sugarcoating this. This is a land shift. Phil Spencer changed the cost of doing business. Who knows what's next? Well, yeah, I mean, look, there are obviously going to be PlayStation fans that, you know, I feel like there are two types of PlayStation fans right now, or at least reactions. There's the PlayStation fan that says, yeah, this is a big deal and this is a big thing. You know, yeah, it's kind of fun. Got it. Hold on, guys. Hold on. Let me get this. Okay. All right. I think that there's the PlayStation fan that's like, yeah, this is a big deal. This is crazy. Who saw this coming? You know, and it'll be really interesting. You know, this definitely has a big impact on Sony and the gaming industry. But, you know, at the same time, that PlayStation fan is not like, oh, man, like, I'm done. PlayStation sucks now, man. Like, I got to go. PlayStation's dead. You know, that's the shit that's reserved for the fanboyism, right? But then there are the other PlayStation fans that are treating this like it's nothing. And it's like, guys, even if you despise Activision and you haven't touched an Activision Blizzard game your entire life, you still got to acknowledge that this is this shakes things up. This is a game changer to an extent. It's a big deal, you know? And I feel like for those people, it's okay. Like, it's okay, guys. It's a big deal. It's okay to admit that it's a big deal. It's okay. It doesn't mean PlayStation's dead. It doesn't mean, you know, Microsoft just snapped Sony's neck. It's not that. All right? It's okay. But then you have people on the other spectrum as well, where they're like, you know, that's it. Microsoft just snapped Sony's neck. It's like, oh, okay. Echoes 93, you're saying all this consolidation is not good for the industry. Yeah, but what are we going to do, man? What are you going to do? You can't stop it. You can't stop it. The train has left the station, man. New Soul 9, you're saying MBG, they want studios that can run themselves just like Bethesda do. So Microsoft can just give them the time and money. I agree. Yeah, dude, think about how that could benefit Game Pass in the long run. It makes total sense. Lord Cage, you're saying free games will never be on Sony level. Sorry. Cobra Force says, what now? Everything is too spread out. What will Microsoft do to consolidate everyone? Close the satellite offices and have them come to a new headquarters? Dude, I'm not even going to think about that. That's a Microsoft headache right there. That's their headache, not mine. You know, I said it, man, and I'll say it again. I know that Microsoft is going to allow Bethesda and now apparently eventually Activision to be autonomous and run themselves, but somebody has to manage this stuff. People have to manage this stuff, man. If they're under a parent company, that's their headache. I don't know. That's the biggest challenge I think they have. I do. Money's not this is where money can't solve everything. There's going to have to be something in place to help keep things intact and running smoothly. It's going to be tough, but I think they could do it. I think they could. It just won't be easy. That they say anything worth having doesn't come easy. And so it's one thing to be able to just buy a publisher. It's another thing to be able to consistently run that publisher and not run them into the ground. You know what I mean? So that's where, but then again, when you're as rich as Microsoft, man, I don't know. I'm not saying money's the answer to everything and not everything can be purchased. I believe that, but at some point when money just isn't a problem at all in the corporate world, I don't know. It can definitely go a long way for sure. Bobby Digital 2, you're saying, do people really think we're going to sell our PS5s now that Microsoft has Activision? I mean, some people will for sure. Some people will, but believe it or not, I think that there are quite a few people who have like impulsive reactions to announcements like this, where they just think, oh man, they have Bethesda, now they have Activision, and they actually, some people do convince themselves, well, they're probably going to buy everybody, so I'm just going to go over there. It'll just be easier. And you can't blame them. That's what Microsoft wants. That's why they announced this the way they do. Onyx, no Spider-Man on Switch, Xbox, or PC. Is that cool? It's not cool. I mean, it's the reality of the situation, man. I get what you're pointing out, but dude, all is fair. At this point, it's all is fair in love and war, right? And this is war. This is war. It's just fascinating to watch this because Phil Spencer is like the guy. So like Phil Spencer's like the dude. He's like the leader where it's like, look, please check Twitter mentions it's about a PlayStation acquisition. Who are you talking about? I'll go check it for sure while I'm live, and I would prefer. Oh, Gary Whitta. I'll go check his Twitter in a second. Let me just get through these real quick. Big Nabs, $77.4 billion spent and not one game to match PlayStation quality. KD says Microsoft gets Destiny 2 and Overwatch from this too. They don't get Destiny, by the way. They don't get Destiny. Destiny is not under Activision anymore. So if you're a Destiny fan and you thought that, no. New Soul 9, you're saying, I hope you people know all Activision IP can be rebooted or changed now that Xbox owns the license to them. Call of Duty and other IP can change now. Yeah, it can. It can. I just don't know that Microsoft's going to do that, man. Like I said, you're not going to see Microsoft go over to Bethesda and be like, this is a war, bro. You must get some psychological help. No. Dude, it's a saying. It's a saying. I'm not saying it's a literal war, man. I'm not saying that Phil Spencer's... I'm not saying that. Did you ever hear the saying, all is fair in love and war? It's basically just saying that there's competition here, man. And if there's an option, they're going to take that option. They're going to take that option, Let me see. New Soul 9, you're saying, I hope you people know what this means. Prototype 3 coming back, baby. Let's go. I never played the Prototype games. I heard they're pretty good, though. I think that's what I've heard. If I'm not mistaking him with something else. Josh Z, you're saying Sony is a magician, never revealing its secrets, LOL, but constantly blowing your mind and impressing its audience with everything they show. I mean, dude, yeah. Yeah, Sony is going to have Spider-Man 2, and for me, Wolverine is massive, so, the Rambling Gamer guy, MBG, I don't know if you saw my second super chat. I think I got it, man, but I'll keep going down here. New Soul 9, Microsoft, you got to admit, Phil is pretty smart. You got to give credit, even if you don't like this. Oh, no, Phil knows what he's doing. No, dude, Phil, he is... I will say, anybody who underestimated what Phil was going to do for Xbox, no, he knew what he was doing, man. And I will give him credit for that. Whether I love it or hate it, got to give him the credit, man. He came in and he did his job. He's doing his job. And the Xbox fan base is pretty happy. Let's say that. Lovid, you're saying, watch Sony roll out Bloodborne 2 now. Yeah, Sony's like, do it. The time has come. If you think about it, though, that would be huge. I'm not saying Bloodborne 2 would count, it would be on the same level, but it would just be so funny if next week all we see is people talking about Bloodborne 2 and no one's talking about Activision anymore. That would be the funniest shit ever. Oh man, that's good. That's good, man. iSiler18, you're saying Wall Street Journal saying that Bobby is out after this deal is finalized. I would hope so, man. I would hope so. I would really hope so. I hope they're right. Cooley Skay, you're saying check Gary Whitta's tweet on Twitter. I think it might be something very important. I'm going to just bring it up and I'll read it in a second. Gary Whitta. Why can't I find him? Why can't I find Gary Whitta? I'm getting annoyed. Oh, whatever. I'll figure it out in a minute. Let me finish these super chats. Jay Kramer. Bethesda and Activision have made mediocre games lately. Microsoft first-party studios are average. Microsoft buying these studios doesn't produce talent. Yeah, it does. You're right. It doesn't produce talent. That remain like we have to see. I mean, dude, look, there is a lot of talent. There is a lot of talent at Activision and Blizzard, but yeah. Let me see. New Soul 9. Microsoft should buy CD Projekt Red. Their stock are very low. I wouldn't be I don't know. I wouldn't be surprised if they ended up getting them one day. Josh Z, speaking of the long game, I think Microsoft's purchases are like most NFL team draft picks. It's going to be 3 or 5 years before we know if it worked. Oh, I agree. That's exactly what this is like, I think. But it does change things in the immediate as well. But the biggest impact will be felt later on. DS, you're saying, I don't know why everyone is freaking out. COD isn't on Switch, and Switch is still outselling both systems. You don't need COD, though. Well, it's not just Call of Duty. I just think that's the first game that comes to my mind. Any others? By the way, guys, we have 1,900 people here. Please hit that like button. I think we can make it to 1,500 likes, which would be awesome. That's like, way higher for most of my streams. So please, if you enjoy the stream and you enjoy the content, please hit that like button. I'd really appreciate it. It does help the streams and the content. KD, you're saying COD plus Warzone, Destiny 2. Well, you can scratch Destiny 2, Overwatch, Diablo, etc. This is a huge L for Sony fans. Let's be real. Really anxious to see how Sony responds. More focus on VR. I'm going to be real with you right now, KD. I can see your perspective where you're saying it's a huge L for Sony fans. But I'm going to be real when I say if Sony's response to this is to focus more on VR, oof. And I'm not trying to be, I'm not a VR hater, man. Like, I want to see more VR. I do. I'm excited for it. But that is not how you respond to this. That is not how you respond to this. We need to see more VR, and I know we will, but that's not the first thing you do after this. That would be a oof, for sure. Maybe, I know there's some people who probably disagree, but no, Sony would need to something else. D-Dog is saying, I'm sad to announce Microsoft has acquired my YouTube profile. From now on, my super chats will be exclusive to Game Pass. It was nice hanging with you. I'm sorry to hear that, D-Dog. Sorry to hear that. I hope the quality of your tweets don't diminish, or your super chats. That was also a joke before anybody gets upset. Bruiser14, Sony has always done well when they were backed into a corner. Let the 90s be an example. Yeah, I know, dude. That's what I'm saying, man. That's what I'm saying. I like to see this. I like to see this. I don't want it to go completely, it's risky. It's risky, but high risk, high reward, man. You know how it is. London Roland, you're saying Venture Beat just put out the top 20 games of 2021. Top 2 are Activision Blizzard. That's weird if true. I'll have to look into that. Lamar F, Apple and Sony partnership. God, I hope not. Okay, let me see if I can find. Oh, my bad. I was spelling Gary wrong. Gary Whitta. Okay, I got Gary Whitta's Twitter up. Let me see. He says 45 minutes ago, if you thought the Xbox/Activision thing was the biggest gaming news story of the day/week, just you wait. Huh. What do you got? Okay, so here's where his tweet is super interesting. His tweet is so interesting because what he's saying is that whatever is about to be announced in the coming week, the coming week, Aaron, you're saying MBG, don't forget the thing I mentioned to you on Twitter. You'll have to tell me in the chat, and hopefully I can see it, man, because I'm not going to be able to. Well, I'll check in a minute. But what he is implying. Did I say that right? Guys, my blood sugars are very low. Okay, I haven't eaten anything today yet so far. I'm just finishing my coffee. Normally by now I would be done. So bear with me if I start to seem like I'm losing it. All right. Shuhei Yoshida in the chat says he's trolling. Somebody says, how can there be bigger news than this? See, that's it right there. That's it right there. I don't know. What could it be? What could it be, guys? What could it be? I am... Lone Survivor, do you think Sony needs to buy Rockstar? And also Deathblade and Lone Survivor, which name is better? I think Lone Survivor is better. I don't think Sony could buy Rockstar, man. I'm going to be real. Well, I don't know. If Rockstar was owned by Sony, I'd be much more excited about Rockstar games, because that means that Sony would actually make them make more than one game. You know, like it wouldn't just be GTA. We would go back to the old Rockstar days. So that'd be great. But Take-Two Interactive does own Rockstar, and there's no way Sony could buy Take-Two Interactive. There's no way. I gotta admit, my curiosity is beyond piqued when it comes to what Gary Witt is saying here, because what in God's name could be bigger than this? Now, here's the thing. We're assuming, and so many people are assuming this has something to do with Sony. It might not, guys. It might not. He might still be referring to Xbox or somebody else. Yo, I got one for you guys. What if the announcement was Sony acquires Fortnite? Could you imagine that? Sony fans would be like, what? That would be the greatest. I would love to see that happen just to see what would happen, man. Just to see the internet's reaction. That would be so great. I mean, because it would be like, well, in a way, Sony does win, but PlayStation fans certainly don't. At least, you know, core PlayStation fans that probably don't play Fortnite. KD, you're saying, I'm so tired of these clout chasers. If you know something, then just tell us. These influencers got to stop creating noise and spreading rumors for clout. So here's what's fascinating, KD. Here's what's fascinating. You ready? This is what gets me excited. Look, I'm going to be real. I'm not excited about the Activision Blizzard. Like I'm invigorated by it. Like I'm like, this is some big news, but I'm not excited because it doesn't affect me in the biggest way. All right? You guys notice how I literally got more excited at the prospect of Blue Box being a secret Kojima studio that's making Silent Hill, because that affects me big time. That's the shit I want, man. I want that Silent Hill Kojima game. That's the shit that gets me excited. This, you know, I mean, if it was Sony acquiring Activision, I'd be like, whoa, like that's, damn, you know, Sony stepping it up, but it's still when, like, I don't, you know what I mean? Like, I don't really play, I know that people are gonna be like, oh wait, so you don't play Activision games very much. I do play Call of Duty, you know, and a Tony Hawk, you know, these games, and if we got like another Crash or Spyro, so I'm not making it sound like it's nothing. But I'm just saying, this is the shit that gets me excited. It's like, so hold on. KD, you're saying you're tired of the clout chasers, these influencers. I agree, man. It gets annoying, but here's what I want you to ponder, okay, for the next, I don't know, however long you want to ponder it for. If what Gary Witta is saying is true, he's basically saying, I know something. And you know what I know? There's going to be an announcement later this week or in the coming week that's bigger than this. And that makes people go, what the fuck could be bigger than that? What in God's name could be bigger than Activision being acquired? So it tells you that it's going to have to be something absolutely monumentally colossal. Check code. KOVU. Let me see. Hold on. KOVU. Who is this? I'm trying to. I need to see who you're telling me to check. KOVUVIW. KOVUVIW. Who is this? I don't know. This is in a different language. I don't know who this is. They also don't have many followers. Anyway, so what I want you to ponder, if I didn't just get totally derailed and sidetracked here, what I want you to ponder is if this is true, if what Gary Wood is saying, that there's something so big, so colossal, it actually will overshadow this, you better believe if Gary Whitta knows about it, that means somebody knows that's not supposed to know. You better believe you're going to start to see it slip out. There's no way. There's just no way that there's something bigger than this and you're not going to start to see people talk about it. And again, it might not, it might not be from Sony, man. And he could be trolling. Some people are saying he's trolling. He very well could be. He very well could be. I will say there's no way it's going to be another Activision. See, this is where I'm starting to mix my words. There's no way it's going to be another acquisition from Microsoft because that's impossible. That's impossible. Could be something from Microsoft, but not another acquisition. Let me see. I got a few more super chats. Cooley you're saying for people who don't know Gary Whitta, he was the editor-in-chief for PC Gamer. He also wrote Rogue One, LOL. Ivan Okochoful, Elon Musk buys Sony Corporation. Anthony Perez, I've missed the first couple of hours, but this makes Sony's push into multiplayer even more important. Also, what did Gary say? I missed it. He said that he basically said that if we think this announcement and reveal of Xbox buying Activision is big, then wait till what's announced next week. Apparently something even more colossal is going to be announced. Sony announces the PlayStation 6. There we go. Got it. Nailed it. Lewis M., you're saying rumors that Sony would sell to Apple to compete. Dude, okay, so let me ask you guys this. How would you guys feel about, I don't know the legal aspects of this. I don't know if Sony can be acquired. I feel like if Sony wanted to be acquired, maybe they could. Like, they would have to consent to it. I don't know. Like, I don't know if there can be any, I don't know. But people keep mentioning Apple. I don't know, dude. Like, no, I don't want to see that shit. That's the last thing I want to see. I don't want to see Sony owned by anybody. I don't want to see the PlayStation brand owned by anybody other than Sony. I do not. I see people saying Disney. Fuck no. Fuck no, dude. No. That would make me reconsider everything. Absolutely. Space D, you're saying one thing is clear, isn't going to be from Sony. Space D, look, man, I don't know if you're just saying this. Like, I don't know if that's an assumption. If you have, like, if there's somebody else talking about this or giving any type of information, let me know, man, because I want to check. Because I would like to know if it's from Sony or not. I'd be very interested. I mean, logically speaking, we're all going to assume it's Sony because at this point in time, Sony makes the most sense. We all talk about Sony's going to have to do something. Sony's going to have to be the one to react. All eyes are now going to be shifted to Sony to be like, yo, Microsoft just bought Activision. Sony, what do you got to say about that? What are you going to do? So that's why I do think that Sony's saying he's trolling, bro. He might be. Yeah, he might be. I don't want to be the person that's like just assuming. I got to say that's a pretty ballsy troll, man. That's a pretty ballsy troll though, you know? I guess I'm just buying into it though so easily because I don't know. I guess it does make sense, right? Like half of this conversation we had and so much of the conversation in the chat is what's Sony going to do? Everybody's expecting Sony to do something, to react. And so that's why it's just easy for me to buy. I don't necessarily know that I believe that whatever he's alluding to is going to be bigger. I mean, it would have to be huge, man. It would have to be huge. But I don't know. I do not know, but we will know. One thing I will say that was fascinating, I don't know if you guys noticed this. You guys notice how we had heard literally nothing about this. We had heard nothing about this. Like there were no rumors, nothing about it. Just we just woke up and it's like it happened, you know? I find that interesting. That tells me that when it comes to acquisitions, we might never get any rumors at all. There might be no rumblings. It'll just happen. And that makes it even more interesting to me. Darkborn, you're saying, I still don't want Sony to buy a publisher, but I'd be okay with Capcom and Square. I want them to buy Ember Lab and a few others first, make more studios. So I'm going to say this. Because I've seen so many PlayStation fans take the high road, which I tried to as well. I tried to take the high road as well, you know, where it's like, no, okay, Microsoft bought Bethesda. It is what it is. And, it is what it is. They bought Bethesda. But we don't want Sony to just buy a bunch of publishers. We don't want to see Sony just go out there and buy publishers. And we don't want to see Microsoft continue to do it. A lot of people took the high road. And, I took it as well. I'm like, yeah, Sony shouldn't do that. But at this point, fuck that. I'm just being honest. No. As somebody who I play on PlayStation, man, that's where I play. No. No more of this, oh, Sony shouldn't do this. No, Sony, if you are going to do it, I will cheer you on. Because I'll be damned if I'm just going to sit here and be like, oh, yeah, no, that's okay. Everybody else can just buy every other IP up and we'll just get nothing. Like, no. Fuck that. This is where it's like, okay, time to pick yourself up by the bootstraps and go out there and make it happen. Make it happen. You know? It's okay if it doesn't. Like I said, I would like to see Sony announce that they're building a studio from the ground up. But I'm just saying, man, if Sony comes out next week and they're like, yo, we bought Square Enix and we're not done, I'd be like, damn fucking right. Damn right you did. Can't blame you. Had to be done. Like I'm not going to be the person to be like, oh man, what Sony, what are you doing, man? Why you do it? Come on. Like, no, because it's clear. It's clear by now that it doesn't matter how much we don't want the consolidation to happen. It doesn't matter how much we don't want these publishers to be bought up. It's going to happen. So yes, as a PlayStation fan, I want to see Sony get in on some of that. You know? Get a piece of that pie. Bring it to the PlayStation fan base. Do it. I'm not going to sit here and be like, nah. Mobile developers. No, not that. Oh. Hey, dude, Xbox may have Bethesda and they may have Game Pass and they may have they're gonna have Activision Blizzard, but you know what they don't have? The Uncharted movie starring Tom Holland. Yep, that's right. What are they gonna do about that? Come on, Microsoft, where's your answer? Sony's got Tom Holland out here, It's Nathan Drake. For some reason, putting Mark Wahlberg in as Sully without a mustache until apparently the end of the movie for some reason. What are you going to do about that, Xbox? That's what I thought. Sit down. People need to sit down. No, really, though. Who's going to go see the Uncharted movie? I'm thinking about seeing it. We need a Tom Holland SOCOM movie. Yeah, every PlayStation movie. Dude, you're going to see Tom Holland as Jin Sakai in the Ghost of Tsushima movie. It's going to happen, all right? Tom Holland fills the seats. Rashdan B2, you're saying iPlaystation Pro Max. Tom Holland as Kratos and Mark Wahlberg as Atreus. There you go, bro. There you go. That's what we need. We need that. That would be fantastic. I would pay to see that. I would pay to see that. Tom Holland as Kratos and Mark Wahlberg as Atreus. I just want to see every PlayStation movie starring Tom Holland and Mark Wahlberg from now on. KD are saying, yeah, but what is he really telling us? Nothing. How often do these rumors end up true? Rarely. He wins regardless of this happening by having his name associated with a big headline and speculating. I know, dude, and I'm probably going to cover it in a video, but you can't blame me, bro. You know, it's like, I got to just mention it. I don't know if I believe Gary Whitta. I feel like he's doing one of two things. He's either trying to be really cheeky and just troll everybody and be like, oh yeah, there's something even bigger. When in reality, it's like, there ain't shit happening. Like, this is the biggest thing. Nothing gets bigger than this, you know? That could be what he's doing. But you're saying Xbox chief of staff and its social media manager liked the Gary Whitta tweet. It's another Xbox move. Oh my God. Come on, man. Come on. Dude, okay, let's talk about that side for a minute. The possibility of it being another Xbox related move. I mean, at what point is it just like, okay, all right. Yeah, I guess it is over. You know, I guess Microsoft is just going balls to the wall here, man. So the only question I have is if it is in relation to Microsoft, yo, watch the announcement be Project Spartacus is Game Pass coming to PlayStation. Imagine that. Because I'll tell you what, that would be way bigger. That would be way, way bigger than anything. But I don't know, man. I don't know. Darkborn, you're saying if Microsoft buys Ubisoft for Xbox, they can compete. The set bonus for buying publishers with sexual harassment scandals, they got that +2 lunge now. Che, you're saying, fun fact, Crash Bandicoot in Spain, it's called Carlos the Spinning Mole. Wow. I didn't know that. Seems like Microsoft now has Carlos the Spinning Mole as an exclusive. Would have never seen that coming. KD, you're saying, you know what Microsoft can't buy? Family. Yeah, dude, yeah. Sony should buy Vin Diesel. I think even Xbox actually has Vin Diesel with, what's that kid? Vin Diesel's in a game. He's in the most random game, Arc 2. And isn't that going to be an Xbox exclusive? Damn it. How could you let that happen, Sony? You let them get Vin Diesel on top of everything else? Come on. What's next? Hello there says, wonder if Sony/Nintendo is still going to pay for Microsoft Azure servers. Sony might switch to Google Cloud/AWS. No more COD exclusive deals at Sony. Yeah. I don't know, man. Dude, at this point, I've been talking for over 3 hours. I'm running out of steam. And I think this is, you know, we've tapped out here. I've tapped out on everything I could say. You know? I've tapped out on everything I could say, and at this point, I'm gonna. It's you know what's so weird about this is I had videos ready to talk about, or ready to make, and other topics to talk about, and I feel like this just literally. I'm not complaining. Like that's the one thing I like, man. As a content creator, you know, Sony's being pretty quiet right now. They don't have much going on. I mean, this isn't the news that PlayStation fans wanted to hear, but it's interesting and it's creates a lot of conversation. So as a content creator, I'm certainly. Grateful that there's something really interesting to talk about here. But it's just weird because it feels like it just completely dwarfs literally anything else that I had to discuss. For example, one of the topics that I was going to be discussing in either video today, or well, not today at this point, but at some point, is the Sacred Symbols podcast. I'm sure many of you guys know them. Shout out to them. I like their podcast. They you know, Colin Moriarty has seemingly, he's becoming more of an insider. I mean, come on, Colin Moriarty's always had contacts at Sony, but now he seems to be open to kind of sharing some more information. One of the things apparently he said during one of his podcast episodes is that Sony is ramping up their spending on marketing, like by a lot. Like they're really ramping it up. And he said it's because they have a big third-party exclusive that they haven't revealed yet. And I don't know who knows what that could be. Who knows what that could be. But let me ask you this. I don't know how many of you here right now were, watching my streams, the Silent Hill Kojima streams. Let me ask you. I'm just curious. I'm not saying it's real. I don't believe it is. But this is just more like a hypothetical. I'm curious. What if Sony announced, maybe not this week or just like soon, yep, Kojima is actually making Silent Hill, guys, and it's going to be a PS5 exclusive. Does that compete? Is that on the... Because I was of the mindset that would be a monumental announcement if it were real. I've said it would be monumental. I'm going to be honest. This acquisition is also monumental. Would you say that the Kojima Silent Hill thing, the fact that like if Sony came out and was like, we mended the bridge between... some people saying not even close. Damn, that's crazy. That's the shit that's crazy to me. That's that to me is this is the battle that Sony has to fight. Some people are saying yes, but most people are saying no. I feel like I gotta agree, man. I feel like I gotta agree. Because this is the battle that Sony has to fight now. This is the battle that Sony has to fight. Because here's the funny thing about it. If that was really something Sony had and they saved it, now it's like Sony, you're gonna need a lot. You're gonna need more than that, man. You're gonna need more than that. But it's Sony. See, that's the thing. Don't count Sony out, man. I'm telling you, do not count Sony out. Sony, they are smart. They know how to generate the hype, man. When they need to, they will. They know what they're doing. So I don't want to assume that, I don't want to assume that Sony is just, not going to be able to generate a conversation of their own. I think they will. But I'm just super interested to know how they're going to do that, how exactly they're going to do that. But that was just something that I was thinking about. Bobby Digital 2, you're saying if Game Pass was on PlayStation, what would be the point of owning an Xbox? The same point now. There would actually, no, you're right. The PlayStation console would essentially be Xbox's console. You're right. There would be no point. I think that if Sony were to bring Game Pass onto PlayStation, Microsoft would stop manufacturing consoles. They would have to continue to support the well, no, I don't know, man. That's another very complicated scenario. Now that you mention it, I don't know. There would be no point. If you were to buy an Xbox console knowing that Game Pass is on PlayStation, you're literally just choosing to miss out on PlayStation exclusives. So that's a whole nother aspect that I didn't even consider that actually makes it seem much less plausible than I originally thought. So, yeah, I don't know, man. Darkborn, you're saying for sure Sony will have to push up their conference or games that they got baking because of this, though. Maybe acquisitions going on right now, too. I don't know. That's the thing is, I don't know that Sony pushes anything up. And this is where I'm going to end the conversation. What does this mean for PlayStation? Well, first of all, I don't think Sony pushes anything up. Triple G, you're saying, isn't one of Sony Studios making a Metal Gear Solid game? That will sell like crazy. We don't know. It seems like Metal Gear Solid 3 Remake is in development at a Chinese studio, so not Sony. But it could be a Sony exclusive. We'll have to see. But I want to say that right now, I don't know that Sony is going to feel pressured to move anything up. Right now, I don't think Sony is going to react in any significant way unless they already had something planned. By that, I mean if they were already planning to announce something next week, then they'll do it. But the reason why I say this is because in the short term, right ahead of us, we have pretty much nothing happening in January. The conversation regarding the Activision purchase will die down over the next couple of weeks. Like, it's peaked right now, but it's going to slowly die down in the coming days and weeks. Sony knows this. Everybody knows this. This is how it goes, It'll still linger, and people will still certainly be talking about it a lot, but it's not going to be anywhere near where it is now. I think Sony is just going to coast for now, be quiet, And they're just going to proceed into next month as planned, where if they have a state of play, they'll do that state of play. They're going to be releasing Horizon. They're going to be releasing Gran Turismo 7. They have Sifu. And I think that anything Sony is going to do, if they're going to make any changes or alterations, I think it's actually for something that's coming a little bit later. I don't think that Sony's just going to come out and be like, oh yeah, Microsoft, well, you did this. Well, we're doing this now. They might, I don't know. But I think that PlayStation might just, they're going to stick to the plan and they're going to keep it going. And anything that they're going to do in reaction to this is going to be done behind the scenes. And we will see whatever that is later on. That's my thought. And so in the long run, what does this mean for PlayStation? Because I want to end the stream by answering the question, what does this mean for PlayStation? I don't definitively know. Nobody does. But after everything we've talked about here, what I think this means for PlayStation is that PlayStation has to, and this is just my opinion, I'm not saying I think it's what they're going to do, it's what I want them to do. They might not. But I think PlayStation now more than ever has to just double, triple, quadruple down on what makes their platform stand out. And even if that means that they have to do it while navigating the loss of games like Call of Duty and Activision Blizzard games in the long run, navigating the loss of Bethesda games, I think right now Sony has to just triple down on focusing on talent within their first-party studios, ensuring that their games are at peak quality, and on top of that, also going out there and acquiring studios that make the most sense, while also maybe being open to the idea, if it's a possibility, to acquiring a big, mega publisher themselves. Possibly if they're able to. I'm not really expecting that, but they should be more open to it now than ever. And if they're not willing to do that, then they have to continue to double and triple down on third-party exclusives. And I know that some people will say, well, third-party exclusives are just not going to cut it. I'm only saying if that's all they're able to do, because Sony cannot buy an Activision, and no other publisher might want to sell, then that might be the next best thing they can do. I basically think this is what Sony should do, and this is what it means for them, and that's it. However, that's just my opinion. Sony could be doing something crazy behind the scenes that we have no idea, or they might not. But that's what I think. It just means that Sony's going to have to continue to try to do what they do best and find ways to deal with this loss and to combat this loss. The loss of Call of Duty, the loss of Activision Blizzard games, the loss of Bethesda games. They have to find a way to fill those holes, and they're gonna have to figure it out. Whether that comes in the form of buying a studio, creating a studio, having one of their current studios make a game that can compete with a game like Call of Duty, a game like Diablo, a game like Elder Scrolls, and that's that. So yeah, that's pretty much it. Jerry A, you're saying makes sense why Sony has been investing in the first-party multiplayer games. Absolutely, it does. Oh yeah, for sure. That might be exactly why. Warden, you're saying Sony isn't worried. No one should be worried. I don't think it's a matter of worry, man. You have to understand, this is having a big impact on the PlayStation fan base. By that I mean, there are a lot of PlayStation fans who love, who love Activision games or Blizzard games, and not only do they now have to deal with, well, so you're telling me I'm not going to get Bethesda games now in the next year and a half, I'm not going to get Activision Blizzard games? PlayStation fans are actively having things taken away from them aggressively by Microsoft. So yeah, to those fans, it is worrisome. Now, when it comes to Sony as a company, like I said, man, they're going to have to do what they have to do. And we're just going to have to see. Rob, you're saying 2023 Microsoft purchases the US. Kendallfire 22, Sony going to greenlight Days Gone 2 immediately. Yeah, well, guys, that does it for this stream. I'm tapped out, over 3 hours long. I hope you guys enjoyed it. I enjoyed the hell out of it. This was a great time. I mean, look, I know that the news there's still so much to unpack here, and a lot of trolling in the chat to be expected, but I hope you guys enjoyed it sincerely. For those of you, look, fuck the trolls, man. Okay, fuck those guys. For those of you who came to my stream and who come to my channel to support my content, you guys are awesome. I mean that. I mean, I've been streaming here for over 3 hours, and I know that there are some of you who were here. You were here the whole time. Some of you keep trying to come back to watch. You guys are awesome. I really cannot thank you enough. To everybody who donated a super chat, just know you are helping support my channel directly. People who are donating super chats, people who are channel members, people who are watching the content and engaging with it and liking the streams and liking the content, you are the fucking backbone of this channel. And I know I'm swearing a lot, you know, got vulgar MBG up here, but I just, you know, I really do mean it. This is what I thrive on. I like that there's so many people willing to show up and hang out here with me and listen and hear me out and engage with me and entertain what it is I have to say and my thoughts. Really appreciate it, man. This was a hell of a stream, and I have a feeling it won't be the last one. So, yeah, thank you guys so much for the support. I don't want to sound like a broken record, but seriously, you guys are awesome. Really, really goes a long way. Really does. So as you head out, just do me a favor, hit that like button. You guys absolutely crushed it. Over 1,600 likes. You know, that's more than most of my videos. That's more than 95% of my streams. So thank you guys so much for all the support. And, you know, hopefully we'll certainly have more throughout the week to talk about. I probably won't be able to get a video out today. This is probably going to be it. But, you know, I'm sure there'll be plenty of content to create, and we'll have to see what else lies ahead. So, yeah, thank you guys so much. And also a big thank you to anybody who watches this stream after the fact. If you watched it to the end, thank you so much. You're helping support the channel immensely as well. But that does it, guys. I'm going to go now, see what's going on. So, yeah, until the next time, guys, take care.